Chapter 263, Entry into the Research Center 1. Su Yu was panting heavily. His body was still a little swollen and painful. Some of the blood on his body had seeped through and covered his clothes. However, Su Yu could not care less about this. His face was full of joy. Iron Wing Bird, Level 2 of 10,000 stones. Race Skill, Level 2 Tearing, Blood Essence Activation, Iron Wing Strike, Blood Essence Activation. The few lines of words made Su Yu extremely happy. He had really advanced. Su Yu was not very sure that he could definitely advance. Previously, he had activated the 1007 layers. Later on, he had consumed quite a lot of blood essence, and it was likely that he had also consumed the 1009 layers. However, he had never advanced. Now, it seemed that if he wanted to advance, he would have to use a higher layer of blood essence to cover it. Today, he had opened the second level of 10,000 stones. With the Iron Wing Bird at the 10,000 stone stage, he probably had no hope of opening the 8th or 9th level of 10,000 stones again. The next advancement would be in the air. Su Yu let out a light sigh. He had succeeded. Especially with the advancement of the basic origin technique. Now that he had entered the 10,000 stone chapter, this meant that if he used his blood essence to cultivate again, the speed of his cultivation would be comparable to the rate at which the second level of 10,000 stones devoured Yuan Qi. This was probably 10 times more efficient for a Kaiyuan. My race skill has also improved. Su Yu looked at the introduction of his race skill and was secretly delighted. This meant that the next time he erupted, it would be the destructive power of the second level of 10,000 stone. Of course, it was best not to try it now. Previously, when he had erupted with the 1,000 lives 7 levels, Su Yu had already felt his arms swell and ache, let alone 10,000 stone. Unless it was a last resort, this thing could hurt others and himself. After resting for a while, he got up and washed up. He washed the blood on his body and changed his clothes. Su Yu pondered for a moment and decided to try using 10,000 stone blood essence to cultivate again. He still had 4 drops of 10,000 stone blood essence left. He wanted to test the effect of cultivating in the 10,000 stone realm. He swallowed another drop of blood. This time, it was much easier than opening it. The blood's energy was absorbed by the Atlas. At the next moment, spots of light flickered in Su Yu's body as his apertures were opened and Yuan Qi gathered. There were more than 50 openings to the myriad stone realm's essence storage art. This was a mystic rank cultivation technique. The openings that were opened at this moment were all temporarily opened to help Su Yu absorb Yuan Qi. The Yuan Qi gathered at an extremely fast speed. Meeting the speed of the myriad stone realm cultivation was not something Su Yu could handle alone. Almost instantly, Su Yu felt that he was saturated. This was also related to the rich Yuan Qi in the Great Xia Mansion. In the southern Yuan, it might not be so fast. However, in the Great Xia Mansion, especially in the Great Xia Civilization Academy, which was the holy land of cultivation, the Yuan Qi was rich and the cultivation speed was extremely fast. Su Yu's face flushed red, but he did not stop absorbing Yuan Qi. Enlightenment. Previously, he had already opened 6 apertures. 5 of them belonged to the God of War technique and the other belonged to the Thunder Origin Blade. At that moment, Su Yu did not open the Thunder Essence Blade's apertures anymore. Instead, he continued to refine the God of War technique's apertures. A large amount of Yuan Qi was absorbed. The 6th aperture of the God of War technique's first stage shone continuously. The surrounding Yuan Qi was constantly being absorbed. At that moment, Su Yu did not even need to replenish himself with Yuan Qi liquid. Just the Yuan Qi in the vicinity was enough for him to open the Yuan refinement aperture. Boom! A muffled sound rang out in his sea of consciousness. In the next moment, the 6th aperture was opened. The speed was astonishing. Su Yu was also shocked. It was too fast. The cultivation speed of the Myriad Stone realm was several times faster than that of the Thousand June realm. It was even more vividly demonstrated by him, who was at the Yuan opening realm. In addition, Suyu was already opening the sixth aperture. This time, it was actually opened in less than 10 minutes. Continue. Suyu looked at the time and saw that it was still open for an hour. He could not waste it. A drop of 10,000 stone blood essence was worth 5 merit points in the official price. He could only find Xia Huyo to make it cheaper. He could not afford to waste it. He had already spent 1 drop when he had just opened it. Now that he had used another drop, he only had 3 drops left. Suyu continued to devour Yuan Qi to refine his aperture. At the third building, Yuan Qi was converging towards him. This was not the southern Yuan district. The residents here were all high-grade geniuses, the reserve force of civilized masters. Gradually, some people felt the flow of Yuan Qi. With their strong willpower, they quickly discovered that the Yuan Qi nearby was being absorbed. Those who were more knowledgeable could even vaguely tell that this was a Myriad Stone realm cultivation. It was not that the 3 buildings did not have a 10,000 stone realm. The 3 guards were all in the 10,000 stone realm. But under normal circumstances, they would not cultivate here and devour the Yuan Qi here. Although the Yuan Qi here was rich, the 10,000 stone realm cultivation speed was fast. It was easy to encroach on the Yuan Qi, preventing the students from cultivating. Soon, on the guard team side, team leader Chen Feng sensed something unusual. He looked around and quickly went up to the 6th floor. A moment later, he stopped in front of door 609. He did not make a sound and did not knock on the door. He waited quietly. When the Yuan Qi fluctuations inside dissipated, Chen Feng knocked on the door. Suyu opened the door with a pale face. Chen Feng glanced at him with some surprise in his eyes. He slowly said, "Student Suyu, were you cultivating just now?" Suyu nodded. "My suggestion is just that it's best for student Suyu to move to the high grade or even the special grade area." Chen Feng said seriously, "In the ordinary grade area, there are more than 100 people in a building. Although the Academy's Yuan Qi is still quite dense, it's not a problem to maintain the daily cultivation of the Thousand June realm. Once the absorption speed of Yuan Qi exceeds 1,000 June, it will be a little troublesome. It will disturb the other students." As he said that, Chen Feng said again, "Not only that, it is actually not good for yourself. In the later stages of cultivation here, you have to use Yuan Qi liquid to supplement it. The Yuan Qi in the high-grade zone is much denser, so it is not a problem to satisfy the cultivation of the 10,000 stone realm. In the special grade zone, it is not a problem to satisfy the cultivation in the air." Chapter 264, Entering the Research Center 2. The division of the Nature Nurturing Garden was actually for the sake of these geniuses. Chen Feng did not ask for details. It was very surprising for a superior genius to be able to devour Yuan Qi at the rate of 10,000 stones. However, this was not something that had never happened before. Some geniuses had special divine texts that could even help their students gather Yuan Qi. The Academy had a Yuan mystic realm, and this Yuan character had the ability to gather Yuan Qi. It was left behind by the 4th-generation head prefect, and it had now become one of the most important mystic realms in the Great Xia Civilization Academy. In the world of civilized masters, anything was possible. Myriad Heaven Saint had taken a glance and discovered the abnormality, but he had also pushed the blame onto the divine runes. If you did not display the divine runes yourself, outsiders would not be able to see it. It was almost impossible to determine what characteristics the divine runes had. Suyu revealed an apologetic expression. He had been somewhat negligent. This was not Nanyuan. There were many experts and geniuses here. These people should be able to sense his accelerated absorption of Yuan Qi. "I'm sorry." After apologizing, Suyu felt a headache coming on. Team Leader Chen, I will take note. My divine runes can only recover every few days. I can only use them again after a few days. I have enough to maintain my cultivation here normally. I will not move for the time being. It would cost money. He also did not expect that the cultivation speed of 10,000 stones would be affected in the normal zone. However, he would not use it every day after activating his blood essence. The key was that he could not afford to use it. Using it every few days at a time when everyone was not cultivating would not have much of an effect, right? However, Suyu vaguely understood that he would not be able to stay here for long. When he reached the 1000 June realm, he might really have to move. Otherwise, it would not be good for him if he was sensed by others every time he cultivated. The Yuan Qi was still not dense enough. Suyu sighed in his heart. Moving away was another expenditure of 10 merit points. He did not know if this place would refund his money. At this moment, Suyu finally understood how childish his thoughts were back then. If he was still in an ordinary dormitory at this time, he would not be able to cultivate. The speed at which he devoured Yuan Qi was so fast that the entire dormitory would be staring at him. Chen Feng's attitude was very friendly. The guards were very friendly towards geniuses like Suyu. Hearing that, Chen Feng smiled and said, "All right, whether you want to move or not, I'm only giving you a suggestion. The high-grade area is more suitable for geniuses like you. Furthermore, it's a separate building and it's not easy to be disturbed. There are people coming and going here, so it's somewhat inconvenient." With that said, he said politely, "I think student Su is cultivating the Aries art. If you have any questions, you can come downstairs and ask me. Our guards are also cultivating the Aries art." Of course, they were all cultivating the normal version. "Thank you." Suyu thanked him once again. Chen Feng did not disturb him anymore and quickly went downstairs. Suyu waited for him to leave and looked around. Some of the rooms' doors opened. Some people poked their heads out, while others were looking in Suyu's direction. When they saw Suyu, these people all smiled and nodded to signal him before closing the door. No one said anything. His cultivation speed was fast and his breathing of Yuan Qi was powerful. Even a fool knew what it meant. This was talent. Although it had interfered with their cultivation, it was only the first time today, so it did not interfere much. Anyone who gossiped at this time was asking for trouble. Of course, if Suyu was like this for a long time, even if he had talent, he would continue to interfere with other people's cultivation. Then, other people's attitudes would not be much better. As the only superior class genius in the 3 halls, Suyu was still very much noticed by everyone. Suyu also nodded to his surroundings and revealed an apologetic expression. He quickly closed the door. After he closed the door, a few more students walked out from the corridor. They pointed at Suyu's room and whispered about something. Superior class geniuses were indeed amazing. On the first day of cultivation, they had already caused quite a commotion. In the room, Suyu felt somewhat helpless. It looked like he was really going to move out. However, tonight's cultivation made him feel a carefree feeling. The Yuan Qi was dense and his speed was extremely fast. Opening the 6th aperture, he felt that opening the 7th aperture was also fast. He might be able to open it the next time. After opening the 8th aperture, the normal version of the God of War technique would reach its limit. He could choose to break through and become a cultivator who was at the brink of death. Of course, Suyu was still waiting for the advanced version. He would need to open 12 apertures. Great Xia Manor. Southern Yuan. Suyu sighed. The two sides were really different. If he was in Southern Yuan tonight, he would need to swallow at least a drop of Yuan Qi liquid. But here, in the normal zone, he did not need to swallow Yuan Qi liquid. If there was no one else, this place could completely support his continuous cultivation. No wonder the Great Xia Manor had as many thousand stones as a dog. For 1,000 June realm cultivator, it would take decades. Even if they did not have any talent, it would not be too difficult to cultivate to 10,000 stones. If father had settled down in the Great Xia manor, I'm afraid he would have been 10,000 stones more than 10 years ago. Su Yu thought of his father. The southern Yuan Qi was too little. His father only broke through 10,000 stones when he reached the heavenly battlefield. What a pity. The next day, Su Yu woke up very early. These 2 days were the time for the academy's students to choose their academy. There were no classes for the time being, so the students had plenty of time to do other things. Su Yu changed into the uniform of the academy. This was bought with money. It cost 5,000 yuan, and there were only 4 sets of clothes in total. After changing into the uniform of the academy, Su Yu looked at himself in the mirror. It was not bad. He had the demeanor of a civilized teacher. The uniform was of a robe style, but it was a little inconvenient to fight. Of course, that was only for the physical body. For civilized teachers, especially these students, it did not have much of an impact. Chapter 265, Entering the Research Center 3. There weren't many civilized masters who used their physical bodies to fight. Divine runes erupted, divine talismans were thrown out, literary soldiers flew out, and monster trainers charged out. In any case, the probability of him fighting was very low. After admiring his own clothes, Su Yu stepped out of the door. The academy was very big. The Heart Cultivation Pavilion was quite far from the nature garden. Baifeng's Research Institute was over there. Su Yu walked for almost 20 minutes before he saw a tall pavilion standing not far away. That was the Heart Cultivation Pavilion. The foundation of the civilized university. Most of the high-level researchers in the university lived there. The Heart Cultivation Pavilion was not just a pavilion, it was a garden area. However, the pavilion was the Heart Cultivation Pavilion. If there were any meetings or major events, they would discuss it in the Heart Cultivation Pavilion. Su Yu glanced over there with some envy. That was not a place he could go. Over there were a lot of mountains and seas in Lingyun. Normally, one would not even have the qualifications to fly over there. After taking a short detour, Su Yu quickly arrived at the research base in the south. There were many research bases in the academy. The one next to the cultivation pavilion was the second research base. There was more than one research institute inside. There were still guards guarding the entrance. After Su Yu announced his home, he took out his student card. The guards scanned it and then let him pass. There weren't many people entering the research base. However, they came and went in a hurry. It seemed that everyone here was very busy. By the roadside, a few middle-aged men in teaching clothes were discussing something in a low voice. Su Yu was a little confused and felt that it was very grand. Su Yu slowly searched. Soon, he saw a somewhat dilapidated building. Wentan Research Center. Found it. Su Yu hurriedly walked over. There were no obstructions at the door. He did not see anyone guarding it, but the door was tightly shut. It seemed like no one had been there for a long time. Su Yu could even see a layer of cobwebs. Su Yu was a little speechless. Could it be that there was no one here? Was Baifeng not here? Just as he was about to knock on the door, the large metal door opened. Baifeng walked out with a pale face. When he saw Su Yu, he nodded slightly. I'm here. Come in. Su Yu did not dare to say anything and followed him in. The door quickly closed. It was not dark inside, but a bright hall. The entrance was a long passage. Baifeng yawned and said, "Next time you come, just swipe your card and come in. I've given you permission. Later, I'll take you around. There are some places that I haven't given you permission. Don't barge in recklessly, you'll lose your life. Don't look down on me. Teacher has spent decades setting up the research institute. If a Shanghai realm expert dares to barge in recklessly, he'll be in big trouble. The Research Institute has a total of 6 areas. Main Research Area, Sub-Research Area, Detention Area, Data Room, Living Area, Storage Room. Bai Feng seemed to be very tired. He said weakly, "I've given you permission to enter the Sub-Research Area, Living Area, and Storage Room. You can't enter the other 3 areas. If you enter and get killed by the divine runes, don't blame me for not reminding you. The main laboratory is the project that we've been researching all these years. You don't have the right to participate for the time being. The living area. We usually stay there. The warehouse was full in the past, but now it can run like a rat. Don't expect anything good from it. The detention area. In the past, some fierce beasts and demons were imprisoned, but now almost all of them are dead. You can't go in either. There are still a few demonic beasts inside, and they're all flying in the air. Be careful, or you'll be killed. I don't need to say more about the information room. Bai Feng casually introduced them for a while, and the 2 of them had already walked through the passageway. Su Yu listened quietly. At this moment, a large hall appeared in front of him. Su Yu even saw the television, the sofa, and the dining table. Obviously, this was the living area. Teacher. Su Yu said softly, "You mean that I can come to the Research Institute often in the future?" "That's right. Then what's my mission?" "Your mission," Bai Feng turned his head and smiled. "Clean up, tidy up the storeroom, participate in some unimportant experiments. Do you know how to cook? If you do, you can cook. It's too far to go out and eat." Su Yu was speechless. "Are you looking for a student or a nanny? Don't be unconvinced." Bai Feng said lazily, "That's how new people come. When you become an old man and new people come, these things will belong to the new people. I don't care if you're a genius or not, you have to wait until you're strong. If you're not strong, you're nothing. There are a lot of monstrous geniuses who are stuck at the peak of nurturing nature in the academy. Who would take a second look at them?" Su Yu did not say anything. After a while, he said, "Teacher, I don't know how to cook. Cleaning is fine, but what can I learn here?" "What can I learn?" Bai Feng said with a smile that was not a smile, "I've learned a lot. I won't teach you the basic courses. You can choose the courses yourself. And on my side, you only have one task at hand. Outline the divine language and enter nurturing nature. As for what you want to learn, you have to lay a solid foundation for me first. Naturally, you will learn it. In our department, we have to have enough divine runes. If we don't have enough, we won't be able to learn anything." "But," Bai Feng looked at him, he frowned and said, "You've sketched out 2 divine runes. Actually, it's already very fast. I'm not too worried about you with the divine runes. If you don't sketch out the divine runes quickly, I won't accept you as my student either. But your willpower improvement is too slow. If you continue to draw divine runes, I'm afraid that your willpower won't be able to be nurtured. Instead, you'll be stuck before your character is nurtured. At this stage, you don't need to draw divine runes anymore. Your main goal is to raise your willpower." Chapter 266, Entering the Research Center 4. Su Yu nodded. This was his weak point. His willpower was too weak. 30% of full capacity was actually not bad. Of course, compared to a top-tier genius, Su Yu was considered weak. A top-tier genius would usually have reached the recuperation stage. Bai Feng saw that he had listened and smiled faintly. Before one's willpower is recuperated, it's easy to raise it. Over at the sub-experimental area, there's an experimental waste field. There's a filtration room and a fragment room. The filtering room is filled with the remains of blood essence. The blood essence is mixed and the energy is messy. If you want to cultivate, you can just cultivate in the outer area. Don't go too deep. Otherwise, the chaotic energy will make you lose control. The fragment room is something left behind after the 10,000 races were broken. The willpower is mixed. This is more suitable for you to raise your willpower. The main reason for raising your willpower is to fight against your willpower. Of course, you won't see much information here. The main reason is that the messy willpower is to train you. It's a good place to raise a newbie's willpower. When Su Yu heard about the filtering room, he thought of what Zhao Li had said before. Those were all things left behind after the separation of the blood essence. Zhao Li thought highly of them. However, Bai Feng didn't seem to think much of them. There was also the fragment room. The original fragments left behind by the 10,000 clans, they had all been made into a room. Just how many original fragments of the 10,000 clans had been used up? They were indeed rich and overbearing. They said that they didn't have any money, but in reality, they were very rich. Which family had used the original fragments of the 10,000 clans and piled them up in a house? Bai Feng leaned back on the sofa and poured himself a cup of tea. He glanced at Su Yu and saw that he didn't make a move. He cursed silently. He had no discerning eyes. These are your current tasks. I actually don't have much to teach you before the character recovery stage. During this period, the basic courses will satisfy you. Your tasks are quite heavy. On one hand, you have to study the basic courses. On the other hand, you have to come to the laboratory to help. Clean up well. I haven't cleaned up for a few months. Bai Feng took a sip of the herbal tea that had been stored for an unknown amount of time. He continued, I won't let you work for free. Every month, I will compensate you with 5 merit points. You have been in the academy for a few days, so you should know how hard it is to earn 5 merit points. As for the filtration room and the fragment room, they are places of treasure to others, but to us, they are nothing. Just treat them as your entry-level training grounds and grasp the opportunity yourself. After Bai Feng said this, he stood up and said, I still have some matters to attend to here. I have to go out for a while. Take a look around yourself. Remember, you can't go to places that I didn't give you permission to. You're not allowed to bring anyone in. If you do, don't blame me if you die. If you're tired, find yourself a room to rest in. There used to be quite a number of people living here, and there are things in the room. If the blanket gets moldy, think of a way yourself. After saying that, Bai Feng left just like that. Su Yu was speechless. However, after Bai Feng left, he felt a little relaxed. He was the only one left in this place, and it was more suitable for him, who had just entered. He could take a look around, and no one was gossiping at the side. Sub-experimental area, storeroom, living area. Su Yu could enter all 3 of these places. However, living area. Su Yu took a look and felt a little helpless. These fellows looked bright on the outside, but what were they doing in the dark? Why were they acting like a pig's nest? The entire hall and the place where they could stay were almost gone. There were living garbage everywhere. Sigh. Su Yu sighed. Bai Feng's elegance had all disappeared at this moment, leaving only a sloppy impression. Even more sloppy than himself. After his father left home, Su Yu managed to clean up the house so that he could see everyone, but Bai Feng's side was simply impossible to look at. If only I had Xia Huyo's ability. At this moment, Su Yu was a little envious. The Blood Thunder brothers were useless. They had no way to clean up, so he could only do it himself. Chapter 267, Where is my limit? Chapter 267, Chapter 82 Where is my limit? Su Yu did not expect that his first day at the Research Institute would be spent on cleaning. After working for more than 2 hours, Su Yu finally managed to clean up the living area. Pig's nest. Su Yu gasped and cursed in his heart. How dirty. How could these people live here? Bai Feng seemed to live here often. Su Yu found many of his daily necessities. This guy was so sloppy. When he went out, where did he get those clean clothes? Could it be that he bought a few hundred sets to change into? Suyu muttered in his heart. After cleaning up, he became interested and wanted to visit the research center. The research center had 3 floors above ground and 3 floors below ground. There were 6 floors in total. Each floor had an area. At this moment, he was on the first floor. This side was the living area. There was a restaurant, a kitchen, and a living room. It would be no problem to accommodate dozens of people. However, there was no one here now. The entire faction was empty. Suyu could imagine that back when the research center was flourishing, there should have been a lot of people here. There were more than 10 rooms. The main experimental area was on the 3rd underground floor. The 2nd underground floor was the detention area, and the 1st underground floor was the warehouse. The 2nd floor was the sub-experimental area, and the 3rd floor was the data room. Now, Suyu could only move between the 1st and 2nd underground floors. He did not have the authority to move around in other areas. Bai Feng said that he was powerful, so he did not dare to run around recklessly. He did not want to die here. Let's go to the storeroom first, maybe there are some good things. Suyu was a little tempted. Was there really nothing left in the storeroom of a large research institute? I don't believe it. A few minutes later. Looking at the storeroom that occupied an area of more than 1,000 square meters and the shelves filled with goods, Suyu believed it. It was really empty. Flying Tiger Essence Blood, soaring. Soul Devourer Demon Essence Blood, soaring. Golden Rock Essence Blood, Ling Yun. Looking at the containers and the names marked on them, Suyu was stunned for a long time. He could imagine how rich this place was back then. Soaring Essence Blood, Ling Yun's Essence Blood, and they were all the Essence Blood of powerful races. There were a lot of them here. But now, there was nothing left. All that was left was an empty storeroom. No, there was something. Suyu searched for a long time and found a type of Essence Blood, but he was still not free. Fire Dolphin Essence Blood, 10,000 stones. A small bottle of Fire Dolphin Essence Blood might have been forgotten and left in a corner without anyone paying attention to it. Suyu wanted to cry but had no tears. The Fire Dolphin Essence Blood was actually considered a good item. However, when he compared it with the label on the other side and looked at the Fire Dolphin Essence Blood. What kind of rubbish was this? This item was even inferior to the Essence Blood of the Iron-Winged Bird. However, it was of some help to Qianjun and Wancha realm in tempering their bodies. Could it be that the research institute can no longer operate? Suyu was a little suspicious. The storeroom was empty. Did that mean that the research could no longer be carried out? Or was it that it was already at the end? If the research institute really goes bankrupt, can it be sold for hundreds of thousands of merit points? Suyu couldn't help but think of Xia Huyo's words. Could it be that he would inherit a large amount of assets as soon as he entered the sect? Shaking his head, Suyu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Looking back at the blood essence shelves, and even the blood essence labeled by the gods and devils in the depths, Suyu was both regretful and shocked at the wealth of the research institute back then. The blood essence of gods and demons was also used for research. He had seen many lists of the top 100 races in the universe. Hong Tan was awesome. Suyu couldn't help but sigh. He closed the door of the warehouse. The heavy door gave Suyu the feeling that if he didn't have the authority to open the door, he might not be able to break through the door even if he was in the air. It's a good place to hide things. Suyu muttered. The warehouse was empty anyway, and it seemed like Bai Feng hadn't come in for a long time. This place was a good place to hide things. Suyu didn't bring out the only bottle of Fire Dolphin Essence Blood. That thing belonged to the Research Institute. Although Bai Feng might have forgotten about it, who knew if it was a test? Don't lose everything because of a small thing. It wouldn't be worth it if he was chased away because of a bottle of Firefly Essence Blood. This research institute was still something that many people were thinking about. Suyu also wanted to know how much benefit he could gain here. Other than the storeroom and living area, Suyu could only go to the sub-experimental area. Before he went upstairs, he had just come out of the storeroom when he suddenly heard a roar that faintly echoed in his ears. Rumble. The ground trembled slightly. At this moment, Suyu was still on the first floor of the basement. When he felt the tremor under his feet, he trembled slightly. It was the movement that came from the detention area. There was really a living creature inside. The remnant of the 10,000 races that Bifome mentioned. Suyu's heart trembled slightly. Were there really living 10,000 races living creatures under the detention area? Or were they flying in the air? Ku Ji Li. A faint voice sounded, accompanied by a roar of pain and agony. Suyu listened quietly for a moment, but he did not understand. This was not a language sequence that he had mastered. A race language that I have never learned before. Suyu raised his eyebrows. The other party was an intelligent race, and some of the races of all races did not have much intelligence. However, the ones being imprisoned down there should be sentient beings, belonging to the system of intelligent beings. He listened for a while and did not dare to stay any longer. He was just about to leave. Below, the language of the races suddenly changed, becoming the common language of the 10,000 races. Let me out. Do you hear me? Let me out. Let me out, I'll give you a supreme treasure. The voice was a little blurry, and Suyu could not hear it clearly. The creatures below might have sensed something, and they knew that it was not Bifome and Hong Tan. They were currently roaring non-stop. Chapter 268, Where is my limit? 2. Suyu took a deep breath and left in a hurry. He didn't dare to act recklessly. He had just tried the ground, but with his strength, there was no movement at all. Since the other party was able to shake the ground continuously, it meant that he was extremely powerful. Suyu was even worried that the other party would break through the ground and charge up. This place did not feel very safe. When Suyu ran up, on the second underground floor. One by one, metal cages were arranged in a huge hall. Many of the metal cages were already empty. There were still creatures in a few of the cages. Some of them were silent, as if they had already died. Some of them were just dry bones. Their flesh and blood had long disappeared. At this moment, in a huge cage, a golden lion-like creature kept hitting the metal frame above its head. Waves of lightning-like electricity kept hitting the golden lion. It was badly mutilated. The golden lion did not care about this. It roared again. When it could not feel the movement above, the lion quieted down. Its lantern-like eyes looked around and roared. We will die, sooner or later. If we don't save ourselves, we won't be able to return alive. The lion used the common language of all races and kept roaring at the cages with living creatures. Hong Tan has left. A newcomer has come. Lure him, we have hope to leave. The lion was still roaring, and in the next moment. A faint voice came, don't think about it. We can't leave at all. Just wait for death. Hong Tan has set up a divine seal on these cages. We can't get out at all. Save your strength, unless a mountain sea realm warrior barges in and lets us leave. The golden lion roared, no, we still have a chance. If the newbies can obtain the authority, they can open the cages for us. This is the Human Civilization Academy. Even if we open the cages, we can't leave. The faint voice sounded out again, there are too many experts here, and there are many Shanghai realm experts. There's even Xiao Longwu in the city. Even if we escape, where can we go? The golden lion fell silent. Dead silence. That's right, we can't escape. Even if we leave this place and leave Hong Tan's demonic palm, where can we run to? This was the human race's hinterland. The faint voice sounded again, stop for a while, don't waste too much energy. There is no vitality here, so every day counts. The golden lion was furious again. I am not willing to die just like this. Such a cowardly death. I want the human race to pay the price. As long as I get out, even if I am killed, I will slaughter the human race and make their blood flow like a river. After saying that, the lion looked at a cage in the corner. There, a shadow-like creature was living in the cage. Its sense of existence was very weak. Shadow, there's still a chance. We can't leave. You have a chance. As long as the cage is broken, you can hide in someone else's shadow and leave. The shadow's faint voice sounded again. It's impossible. After being imprisoned for so many years, my innate ability has long been unable to be used. Without the innate ability of the Shadow Clan, any one of them can fly up and kill me at will. They can even discover my existence when they fly up. The golden lion roared once more. It was unwilling. Unwilling to become a prisoner, unwilling to become Hong Tan's experimental subject, unwilling to have its blood extracted time and time again to produce blood essence. Once, it had also roamed the heavens battlefield. Once, it was also a genius of the clan. It was unwilling to die here in obscurity, with no one paying attention to it. But it could not leave. This was a prison set up by a Mountain Sea Realm expert. The cages were specially made and were surrounded by divine runes. It couldn't leave at all. Suyu didn't see what happened on the second floor. At this moment, he didn't dare to go and watch. The feeling of the earthquake just now made him feel a lingering fear. Below, there were all the clans in the sky. Who knew if it was Ling Yun or someone else? If he went, he might be swallowed whole. Suyu only heaved a sigh of relief when he reached the second floor. The second floor was also divided into several areas. Suyu saw rooms with the name of the laboratory on them. Blood Essence Separation Room. Blood Essence Fusion Room. Divine Runes Fusion Room. Anatomy Room. The sub-experimental area had more than 10 laboratories. Suyu only saw the waste area that Bai Feng mentioned when he reached the end. This was a separate area, with a corridor in the middle, a filter room on the left, and a debris room on the right. Other than that, there was another area in front. Suyu looked up and saw the words, Abandoned Holy Prose Area, written on it. Suyu was stunned. Abandoned Holy Prose? Were there still abandoned Holy Prose? No, could Holy Prose still be stripped? One had to know that after the Holy Prose appeared, unless it was permanently circulated, it would quickly dissipate. What was this abandoned God text area? Suyu hurriedly took out a small booklet, Newcomers Must Know. This was something that Bai Feng had left on the sofa when he left. Suyu flipped through it and quickly saw the introduction of the abandoned God text area. God text, there is hope for inheritance above the Shanghai realm. It will appear forever and pass down forever. Abandoned divine writing, similar to the product of civilization. After the death of the civilization masters, they left behind broken divine writing that could not be used and did not completely disappear. All of it was stored in the abandoned divine writing area, mainly used for characteristic transfer and fusion. Most of the abandoned divine writing in the Wentan Research Center came from the 10,000 races, and a small portion came from the product of failed characteristic fusion in the past. The transfer of the characteristic fusion was the research result that the Wentan Research Center was most proud of in the past. However, the failure rate was too high, and it had been sealed for a long time. There were only theoretical inheritances, and there were no more human experiments. The university's characteristic fusion course was only a preliminary introduction to this theoretical knowledge. Chapter 269, Where is My Limit? 3. There was a detailed introduction in the booklet, introducing the experiment of characteristic transfer and fusion back then. There had been successful cases, and there were quite a few of them. But there were even more cases of failure. Failure. Either the divine text had been destroyed, or the Sea of Will had collapsed, or the divine text had been repelled. The repelling of the characteristic had resulted in even more failures. Therefore, as early as a few decades ago, the characteristic transfer and fusion had already been sealed. This technology was no longer open to the public. The Academy had this course, and it was just a simple theoretical knowledge. Strictly speaking, it was only for the reference of some students. In reality, Hong Tan no longer accepted applications for characteristic transfer and fusion. Of course, as a student of Hong Tan's department, Suyu could learn this technology in depth. However, there was a requirement in newbie must know. It was not allowed to accept human experimental applications. One could continue to experiment with 10,000 races to increase the success rate. If the success rate was higher than 90%, then one could continue to experiment on humans. Hong Tan had been busy with new projects over the years. Originally, this project was researched by someone, but since the human race had almost run out, the fusion and transfer technology had been sealed. Such good technology, but it's actually sealed. What a pity. Suyu felt a little regretful. Of course, he also understood that the new project was definitely more important than this, which was why Hong Tan had given up on continuing his research. Bai Feng and the others probably didn't have the energy to continue their research now. However, there were probably still people in the academy who were still researching. Although the technology had been sealed, the theoretical knowledge and materials had been handed over to the academy by the Wentan Research Center. Otherwise, the academy wouldn't have been constantly funding the research center all these years. It had a lot to do with the submission of the technology back then. Abandoned Divine Prose District. Suyu looked at the large laboratory again but did not enter. Although he was somewhat interested in the abandoned Divine Prose, at this moment, he was more interested in the other two departments. Standing outside the fragment room's door, Suyu took a deep breath. His student card was swiped and the door opened. What greeted his eyes was a mountain of bone fragments and animal skin fragments. These were all the words of will in the past. The internal willpower had been used up too much and these things were all useless. Suyu found it hard to imagine how many words of will had been discarded here. This was an astronomical figure. How many merits? He stepped in as if he had bumped into an invisible wall. The air rippled. In the next moment, Suyu broke through the barrier and officially entered the fragment room. Just as he broke through the rippling wall, Suyu's sea of consciousness began to tremble. The two divine inscriptions seemed to have woken up from a deep sleep, and they kept trembling. Suyu's face instantly turned pale. His willpower burst out, fighting against the overflowing willpower. He was still some distance away from the fragment mountain. But even so, Suyu still felt a mountain-like pressure, pressing down on him. Suyu didn't know that this place was divided into different regions. Divine text restrictions separated the fragment mountain from the outside world. He had only entered the first region. If his strength wasn't enough and his willpower wasn't strong, he wouldn't be able to break through the second barrier. Even so, Suyu couldn't bear it any longer. Large drops of sweat dripped down. His face was pale, and his willpower was constantly being consumed. He could clearly feel that his willpower was being consumed. This was much more violent than when he had first observed the bone fragment. It was not just a single strand of willpower, but many different types of willpower gathered together and attacked his sea of consciousness. There was no inheritance of knowledge. Occasionally, a few words that he did not recognize would burst out chaotically and disappear in the blink of an eye. They would turn into willpower and attack Suyu once again. What a mess! Suyu no longer tried to sense the inherited knowledge. These things were all broken pieces and trash. If he continued to sense them, he would go crazy. Feeling his willpower being continuously depleted, Suyu began to pant violently. Was this the effect of the fragment room? At this moment, the 30% full charge was like a lone boat in the sea. Willpower from all directions continuously attacked Suyu, making him drift along with the waves and feel like he was going to capsize at any moment. A moment later, Suyu felt that his willpower had been exhausted. At this moment, his sea of willpower trembled slightly, and a new wave of willpower appeared. This was not brought about by the album, but by the sea of willpower itself. When willpower was overused, some new willpower would be born. This was the secret of a civilized master to strengthen himself. Suyu tasted the sweetness. He was originally prepared to retreat, but now he took another step forward. He was not prepared to leave, so he continued to resist to see if his willpower could be strengthened a little more. At this moment, Suyu felt the pain of being pricked by needles. That weak willpower was fighting against the scattered willpower in all directions, making him feel particularly painful. It was as if he had returned to a dream, being killed by those monsters time and time again. Suyu persevered. He felt that he had not reached his limit yet. According to Newbie Must Know, when you felt that your head was about to explode, you had to leave. That was the embodiment of overexertion. When the sea of will was in turmoil, you had to leave. He did not feel this kind of feeling. Otherwise, he would not have taken the risk. Since there was no such phenomenon, it meant that he could still hold on. 10 minutes later, Suyu's tears came out. I haven't reached my limit yet. At this moment, he suddenly felt that his limit was too high. Really good pain, pain he almost wanted to die. More painful than being killed dozens of times, but why still do not feel the turbulence of the sea of consciousness? Chapter 270, Where is my limit? 4. Suyu didn't know, nor could he see. At this moment, the golden book emitted faint energy to stabilize his sea of consciousness. Originally, his sea of consciousness should have been in turmoil. But every time there was such a sign, the golden book would slightly move and stabilize his sea of consciousness. So, Suyu's limit was beyond his imagination. But the pain was also beyond his imagination. A person who had no limit was constantly pursuing his limit and enduring intense pain. Suyu had always wanted to wait until his sea of consciousness was in turmoil and when he felt that he couldn't hold on any longer before he went out. But obviously, he couldn't wait any longer. 15 minutes later, Suyu lay on the ground, tears blurring his eyes. Am I not tough enough? Am I not ruthless enough to myself? Have I never reached my limit before? I always thought that I was struggling at the edge of my limit, but what do you mean now? Have I never forced myself into a desperate situation? Suyu wanted to cry. Could it be that the pain of being killed, swallowed, and bitten to death in the past was not his limit? Was his endurance stronger than he imagined? 20 minutes later, Suyu used all his limbs and crawled out. I won't do it anymore. Forget it, I'm not cruel enough to myself. I'm afraid that I'll die of pain before I reach my limit. A minute later, Suyu crawled out and looked at the fragment room with lingering fear in his heart. He was also somewhat distressed and helpless. I can't be ruthless to myself. His first time in the laboratory, he actually suffered a crushing defeat. He actually didn't manage to endure until his limit arrived. According to the manual, this was the first time he had endured until his limit arrived. It was a great help to him. At this moment, Suyu even began to doubt himself. Lu Wenyan and Bai Feng had both said that Suyu was very tenacious. Zhao Li had also said that he saw that Suyu was tenacious enough, which was why he had the idea of taking him in as a disciple. Suyu himself had taken it seriously. But now, was he really tenacious? Suyu lay on the ground, a little doubtful of life. He felt that he was about to die from the pain. Could there really be many people who could endure until their limits arrived? This manual isn't lying to me. At the same time, Bai Feng ate wildly while holding the communicator and said, "Don't worry about him. Throw him to the laboratory and play by yourself." I said, "Don't worry. If you're really worried, you can go and take a look yourself." I say, "Senior brother, I'm taking care of my disciple, not you. What's the rush?" Bai Feng's mouth was full of oil from eating. After the other person finished speaking, he said again, "Let him go to the fragment room. Next, let him mainly improve his willpower there. This kid's tenacity is still okay. With 30% full capacity, it won't be a problem for him to hold on for a few minutes there. Don't worry. When he reaches his limit, he will withdraw on his own. Even if he doesn't withdraw, his sea of consciousness will be in turmoil. The restriction will also throw him out. Will he die? 5 minutes is a threshold. This kid can hold on for 5 minutes. He can withdraw and recuperate. It won't be a big problem for him to increase his full capacity by 1% at a time. Bai Feng said for a while and then said with a smile, "He will come once a day. Even if the effect is weakened later and the effect increases by 1% in 3 days, he will have a chance to enter the recuperation stage after 2 to 3 months. I know. Don't worry. I won't let him go in every day. He will feel extreme pain. That kid probably won't go in every day either. He will go in every few days. At most, he will be able to reach the recuperation stage after half a year." Bai Feng chuckled and said, "If he can reach the recuperation stage after half a year, coupled with the advancement of his physical body in the coordination of divine runes, even if he can't enter the top 100, he'll still be able to enter the top 1000 among the students. 1 year later, I'll let him challenge the students in the top 100. Who are you talking about? Lu Hong's younger brother?" Bai Feng said disdainfully, "I also have some understanding of that kid before he came to the academy. Before he came to the academy, he was already recuperating. He's at 9th level of Yuan opening realm, and the outline of divine runes has been completed. Killing his way into the top 100 was also created by Lu Hong. Can he compare to Su Yu, who will enter the top 100 in a year? Of course I'm confident. If he can't enter the top 100 rankings in a year's time, then I've misjudged him. You go about your business, don't bother about me. Let this brat suffer a little before we talk. Otherwise, he might get arrogant." After hanging up the call, Bai Feng wiped his mouth and turned his head to look at the research base in the distance, revealing a smile. "Brat, it must be very uncomfortable to have reached his limits, right? It must be painful, right? Is it so painful that you wish you were dead?" As for whether Su Yu could hold on until his limit, he did not doubt it. If this kid did not have any tenacity, then he had really misjudged him. "Sigh, I forgot something big." Bai Feng suddenly said, "There should have been some records in the manual at that time. For example, I held on for 10 minutes, 30 minutes. I should have let this kid feel inferior." Bai Feng felt a little regretful. He should have added a time record. He lasted for 10 minutes, 30 minutes. 10 minutes did not show how strong he was. That kid lasted for a few minutes. Once he saw the record, he clicked his tongue. Would he be so embarrassed that he would not be able to face anyone? The next time he saw him, he would not be so proud, right? He would know what a true genius was, right? Shaking his head, Bai Feng had his fill. He couldn't be bothered with Su Yu anymore. After tidying up, he paid the bill and left. Today, he would have a good rest. Tomorrow, he would go and find trouble with Hu Wensheng. If he didn't show Lu Hong some results, this fellow would pluck his feathers. If not, he wouldn't have enough money to eat. Chapter 271, You Are in Big Trouble. 1. Wentan Research Center. In the fragment room, Su Yu returned in defeat. Although he was somewhat unwilling and depressed, the pain was real. Su Yu could not bear it and had to crawl out of the fragment room. However, Su Yu was still unwilling to give up. After resting for a moment, Su Yu ran into the filter room. Just like the fragment chamber, the filtration chamber was also divided into several regions. Su Yu entered the first region. This time, it was much easier than the fragment chamber. There was a large pool in front of him. Golden blood seethed inside. It was not a drop of essence blood, but a mixture of countless essence blood. Some of the essence was extracted. The remaining essence blood was mixed to form this pool. The mixture of essence blood was actually not very suitable for experts to cultivate. However, the overflowing yuan qi was very dense. As long as one did not go deep, it was more suitable for Su Yu to cultivate. If I activate the essence assimilation technique here, there is no need to consider the problem of yuan qi. Su Yu immediately made a judgment after entering the first region. The rich yuan qi was the first benefit. The second benefit was that the blood underling could absorb the essence blood for free. The blood underling was not afraid of meat and vegetables. He could absorb any kind of blood. The blood essence in this large pool was enough for the blood underling to eat his fill. What a pity. Looking at the large pool, Su Yu still felt that it was a pity. The blood essence was mixed together. Otherwise, he might be able to use it to open the atlas. There was definitely some of the blood essence that belonged to the race he had dreamed of. With so much blood essence, it was impossible for there to be no race in his dreams. But now, it was difficult to separate them when they were mixed together. The essence was extracted, but Su Yu felt that even without the essence, the blood essence was just a primer. There might be a chance to open the atlas. If the essence of the iron-winged bird's blood essence is extracted, can it still help me with my cultivation? Su Yu was pondering over a question. If it was possible, it wouldn't affect him. According to the situation in the laboratory had wasted quite a bit of blood essence. If he obtained it, would he be able to devour it for cultivation? The large pool in front of him was filled with a large pool of blood essence. Would he be able to make use of it? Su Yu fell into deep thought. However, at this moment, even if he could, he didn't dare to act rashly. He had just entered the laboratory and did not know anything. If he tried rashly, it would easily lead to problems. More importantly, he could not enter the inner area at all. He could not get close to that large pool. The yuan qi around the pool was very mixed, and the blood essence energy was very strong. He could not even get close to the yuan opening realm now, so he could easily be blown to death. I'll first cultivate and recover, then. I'll go to the fragment room. I don't believe that I'm really that bad. Su Yu became stubborn. He didn't believe that he was really that useless. If others could persist to their limits, why couldn't he? Perhaps his limit was a little higher than others, so he could definitely reach his limit. He sat cross-legged and cultivated. He recovered his vitality. The blood underling rapidly absorbed the overflowing blood qi in his sea of consciousness. At this moment, he was extremely excited. And in his sea of consciousness, waves of newly born willpower were erupting. After the willpower resisted, there would always be a period of improvement. For ordinary people, it was already good enough to be able to support it once a day. When they recovered their full willpower, they would need to spend some time again. It was common to see the 10,000 clans original once every 2 to 3 days. Bai Feng said to let Su Yu enter once a day. Obviously, he was just saying it. Once every 2 to 3 days. It was more suitable for students at Su Yu's stage. Su Yu did not care about this. He knew that it was difficult for his willpower to recover. However, he felt that it was probably because his willpower was too weak, so he recovered relatively quickly. Back then, when he was at home looking at the original 10,000 races, he recovered very quickly. Every day, he would look at several pieces of the original 10,000 races. The piece that recorded // was destroyed by him in a few days. In the filtering room, Su Yu did not worry about yuan qi. His cultivation speed was very fast. The yuan qi in his body recovered. After tempering his acupuncture points for a while, his blood little brother was extremely satisfied. He immediately sucked until he was full and began to sleep. Su Yu sensed for a moment. His blood little brother was very bright at this moment. One look and he could tell that he was much brighter than his thunder little brother. It looked like he had gained quite a lot. This time, he did not devour his blood essence to cultivate. This was his first time here, so he had to keep a low profile. After cultivating for an hour, Su Yu gritted his teeth and rushed into the fragment room again with an expression that said he was ready to face death. He did not believe it anymore. I, Su Yu, have been killed thousands of times in my dreams. What battle have I not experienced? What dangers have I not encountered? I have not reached my limit. Perhaps my limit is higher than the average person's and I have been killed many times. Therefore, my limit is deeper. It is not that I am incompetent. He did not admit that he was incompetent. Ever since he was young, he did not feel that he was incompetent. In the academy, even if he did not have the atlas of the myriad races, he was still ranked among the best at that time, except for Lu Yu, who had studied for a longer time than him. He was the student who had mastered the myriad races language the most. In Nanyuan, he was outstanding, and here, he was no exception. Su Yu charged into the fragment room and once again activated suicide mode. 10 minutes later, the pain erupted. 15 minutes later, tears fell again. The pain was unbearable. 20 minutes later, Su Yu's entire body trembled. In his mind, the blood and thunder divine runes were both emitting light, participating in the resistance of willpower together. 25 minutes. Su Yu persisted for 25 minutes before rolling and crawling out again. His entire body was drenched in sweat. He was a little stronger than the last time. Su Yu was overjoyed. What did this mean? It meant that his willpower might have been strengthened a little during the previous time. It meant that he was tougher and more durable than the last time. Chapter 272, You're in Big Trouble. 2. Even though, he hadn't reached his limit yet. I can do it. Su Yu gritted his teeth. He could definitely do it. If he couldn't do it today, then he would do it tomorrow. He would definitely be able to do it. Just like that year, when the dream came, he couldn't sleep. He didn't dare to sleep and almost died. Later on, he overcame it. He forced himself to endure and endure his fear. He ignored death, welcomed death, and endured pain. He was able to do it when he was very young. There was no reason for him to be stopped at such a small checkpoint. This was also an opportunity for him to strengthen himself. In the filtration room, Su Yu began to cultivate again. He recovered his vitality and waited for his willpower to recover before charging into the fragment room again. At this moment, Su Yu no longer considered anything else. This was a rare opportunity. He had encountered such a good place. If this was not an opportunity, then what was it? Bai Feng was right. At that moment, Su Yu somewhat agreed with Bai Feng. He believed him when he said that others would not be able to enter even if they spent tens of thousands of merit points. Ignoring everything else, just these two places were worth tens of thousands of merit points. This was equivalent to a myriad clan original that would never be used up. A drop of yuan qi liquid that would never be used up. Su Yu suspected that every time he cultivated, the yuan qi he expended was equivalent to the effect of a drop of yuan qi liquid. As for the 10,000 species original, it was even more expensive. He suspected that if he used it this way, he would only need to waste a 10,000 species original at most 20 times. That was tens to hundreds of merit points. I enter the filtration chamber 10 times a day and enter the fragment chamber 10 times a day. That would earn me at least 100 merit points. As Su Yu was cultivating, he thought of these and carried out the price conversion. One recovery would take more than an hour, and entering the fragment chamber would take less than half an hour, a total of 2 hours. If he could enter the chamber 10 times a day, that would be 20 hours. 4 hours to eat, drink, and sleep. Su Yu exhaled. Forget it, there was no need to work so hard. He could enter the chamber 6 or 7 times a day. Earning 60 or 70 merit points was not bad either. It would be worse than overdoing it. It's fine as long as it's about right. Anyway, I can't run around this place. 2 hours for a cycle. Then I'll enter 6 times a day and cultivate for 12 hours. This was now. In 2 days, the academy would have to start basic classes, and he still had to attend classes. Su Yu began his own cycle mode. The fragment room resisted willpower, the filter room recovered vitality, and the blood underlings were nurtured to recover willpower. With the help of both, he felt that his willpower was constantly increasing. Su Yu did not know how much it had increased. The full extent of willpower could only be sensed by civilized masters in the air. As for the others, they could only roughly sense the strength. As for himself, he had to cultivate his character before he could clearly sense the strength of his willpower. That night, Su Yu stayed in the laboratory. This was Su Yu's 4th night in the academy. August 4th. Early in the morning, Bai Feng arrived. He was no longer dispirited and unkempt. That fellow had gone out of his way yesterday. He was full of energy, and his clothes were brand new. He didn't have a stubble on his face, and his face was flushed. After entering the laboratory, he swept his gaze across the living area on the first floor, and a smile appeared on Bai Feng's face. Very good. The cleaning was not bad. He finally had a place to stay. Since his teacher was back, he probably would not explode, even though his teacher rarely cleaned. Su Yu. Bai Feng sensed Su Yu's aura and shouted. The next moment, Su Yu walked out of a room with a pale face. Bai Feng casually threw the bag in his hand over and said with a smile, "I knew you didn't leave. It's my first time here and I can't bear to leave. Eat something. I just brought it from outside. It tastes pretty good." "Thank you, teacher." Su Yu took the breakfast and wolfed it down. He hadn't eaten since yesterday and was starving to death. He was just about to go out to eat. Bai Feng smiled and was about to ask something when his face suddenly froze. Huh? Bai Feng stared at the pale Su Yu. Was his vision playing tricks on him? Willpower exploded. Su Yu, who was eating, felt a surge of willpower sweeping over him. He raised his head to look at Bai Feng but did not say a word. Bai Feng blinked and retracted his willpower. Then, willpower burst out again. Su Yu felt the scan of willpower once again and twisted his body uncomfortably. He realized that Bai Feng's gaze was not right. What was wrong? Bai Feng ignored him. He touched his chin and pondered for a moment. Then, he slowly said, "You went to the fragment room yesterday?" "Yes." "How long did you stay?" Su Yu said embarrassedly, "Not long." "How long is not long?" "Less than half an hour." Su Yu said a little awkwardly, "At the beginning, it was only 20 minutes. After that, there were a few more times. The last time was almost half an hour." Bai Feng did not say a word. At this moment, he was thinking about his life. Was there a problem with the fragment room? Half an hour. No, how many times did this kid enter yesterday? Bai Feng's heart shook. The first time was only 20 minutes. After that. After that. After that, how many times? 30% of full capacity. If he used up all his willpower in one go, he would need at least a day to recover, right? How many more times would there be? Half an hour. The last one lasted for nearly half an hour. Bai Feng's expression changed a little. What was going on? This did not make sense. Bai Feng's expression was serious as he said, "How many times did you enter in the last few times?" Su Yu saw how serious he was and thought that he had entered too many times. He thought that he had used up too much willpower, so he was dissatisfied. He said carefully, "In total, 6 times." Huh? Bai Feng's expression became completely serious as he said in a deep voice, 6 times. Has the sea of willpower been shaken? Chapter 273, You're in big trouble. 3. No. I'm talking about the violent turbulence. Bai Feng said in a deep voice, You've been in there a little too many times. Don't mess around. No one can save you if your sea of consciousness collapses. There's no turbulence. Su Yu saw his stern tone and said hurriedly, There's no turbulence, not even once. Bai Feng looked at him as if he was looking at a monster. At this moment, Bai Feng suddenly wanted to dissect him. He wanted to dissect him more than he wanted to dissect the 10,000 races in the detention room. You didn't use up your willpower. I did. But after entering the filtration room, it recovered very quickly. Bai Feng fell into deep thought. After a long while, he said, You have 2 divine runes? Yes. What about the characteristics of the divine runes? Blood-sucking, illusionary realm, lightning strike, it may also have paralysis. Su Yu did not hide anything. This was his current teacher. He had to say it so that the other party could train him better. Nothing else? I don't think so, right? Su Yu was not sure. There were some characteristics of the divine runes. If you did not use it yourself, you might not even be able to discover it. He really did not know if there was anything else. That blood divine text of yours, did it make any other movements after it absorbed blood? I think. It didn't. Su Yu didn't know either. It shouldn't have, right? Will there be some feedback power for you? Bai Feng suspected that after this divine text absorbed blood, it could be converted into willpower. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to explain why Su Yu entered the fragment room 6 times a day. If that was the case, then this divine text was too terrifying. This was simply the divine text that divine scribes dreamed of the most. It could even be compared to those divine texts that would be passed down forever. Bai Feng subconsciously felt his mouth dry up. Could it be like this? If that was the case, then Su Yu's blood divine text had been learned from the origin opening art that he had written. Then, wouldn't he have to write a few hundred pieces and think of a way to capture this blood divine text? Although everyone received the divine text, even if the characters were the same, the characteristics might not be the same. However, as long as there was a chance, it was worth trying. Feedback power? Su Yu thought for a moment and said uncertainly, I'm not sure. I haven't noticed it before. Then, when your willpower recovered, did you feel that it was very fast? Su Yu nodded. It was pretty fast. Bai Feng did not say anything else. He sat on the sofa and fell into deep thought. Half an hour, 6 times, and his willpower recovered quickly. Damn it! He suddenly cursed in his heart. Why did this kid encounter all sorts of good things? Was it because of the divine runes, or something else? How was that possible? His willpower was only at 30%. Oh, now it was at 35%. This was also the reason why he was shocked the moment he arrived. He had seen it yesterday. Su Yu's full level of willpower was only 30%. After not seeing it for a day, it was already 35%. He was already lucky that he wasn't shocked. It had increased by 5% in a day. It was a little scary. Even though it would gradually weaken later on, this speed still shocked him. How did Su Yu do it? Even if he recovered quickly, it was not normal for him to be able to persist for such a long time. It would be difficult for him to persist for half an hour. The blood character divine script might be able to recover his willpower, but if he persisted for a long time, it would represent the strength of his sea of consciousness. Could it be that his sea of consciousness is more stable than an ordinary person's? That might be the case. If not for that, he would not have been able to grasp 2 divine scripts so easily. His innate sea of will is stronger than others. He thought back to the first time he met Su Yu, when his willpower was at 10%. That day, Suyu had directly mastered a divine inscription, which was almost impossible. At that time, he didn't think too much about it, thinking that Suyu's talent in divine inscriptions was powerful. But now that he thought about it carefully, perhaps, it was because his Sea of Will was naturally stronger and more stable than others that he was able to master divine inscriptions at that stage. After thinking for a while, Bai Feng returned to normal. He looked at Suyu and said in a deep voice, "Did your ancestors have powerful civilized masters?" Suyu was at a loss and shook his head. "I've never heard of them." "No." Bai Feng muttered and continued, "I know about your father's side, but what about your mother's side?" Suyu scratched his head and said in a low voice, "My mother died during childbirth when I was born. My mother didn't have any relatives, so I'm not sure." "Is that so?" Bai Feng said hesitantly, "On your mother's side, is it possible that the ancestors had powerful civilized masters?" If the ancestors had powerful civilized masters, then the Sea of Will might be innately powerful. This was also a kind of inheritance. Of course, this powerful civilized master had to be above the mountains and seas. Above the mountains and seas, the divine writing would be passed down forever. Only then could the willpower be passed down. "I'm not sure about that." Suyu shook his head. He really wasn't sure. Bai Feng saw that he couldn't get anything out of Suyu, so he didn't ask any more. He glanced at Suyu from the corner of his eye and coughed lightly. "You eat first. I'll go up and take a look. Come out with me later." "Okay." Suyu didn't ask anything and started eating. He was really hungry. On the third floor. In the information room. Bai Feng closed the door. The next moment, he suddenly roared. "Damn it! Holy shit! Is it because of that divine text? This doesn't make sense. Is the divine text I wrote that awesome? That's impossible. It's a pity that he can't materialize it. Otherwise, I would have studied it. I would have studied it. No, I want to write the origin opening technique myself. I want to write 100 or 10,000 pieces. I want to master this divine text." Bai Feng hammered the ground crazily. His hands were almost swollen. Chapter 274, You're in Big Trouble. 4. This really doesn't make sense. How could he recover his willpower after 2 hours? How could he last for half an hour in the fragment room at this stage? One had to know that when he first entered the academy, he had lasted for 10 minutes for the first time. That was because he was about to recover. Could it be that, the willpower in the fragment room has run out, so it's not as strong as before? With an incredulous heart, Bai Feng suddenly rushed to the second floor. He quickly entered the fragment room. A moment later, he walked out in a daze and muttered, "No," but as the number of fragments increased, the willpower became stronger. After thinking for a moment, Bai Feng took out his communicator and made a call. "Senior brother. What's wrong?" Bai Feng muttered, "Senior brother, do you believe that my willpower increases by 5% every day?" On the other side of the phone, Bai Feng's senior brother said worriedly, "Did you take some forbidden medicine? Or are you too tired and hallucinating? Or, you? Bai Feng, why don't you rest for a while and not go to the detention room? Could it be that you were bewitched by some demon?" "Senior brother, you don't believe it?" Bai Feng. "I don't believe it either." Bai Feng wanted to cry but no tears came out. He muttered to himself, "I don't believe it either. But I can't not believe it." As he spoke, Bai Feng rubbed his cheeks, he took a deep breath and said, "Senior brother, I've discovered a secret divine text. It's very powerful, very powerful. It's very special, very special. I want to outline it. Once I outline it, it might become an eternal divine text. Senior brother, I don't have any more money. Lend me 5,000 merit points. I'll go outline the divine text." On the other end of the line, there was a pause for a moment. The next moment, an angry roar sounded, "Scram! Damn it, so you're here to scam money after all this time. You made me think that you were in some kind of trouble." "It's true, senior brother, I really found out. Asterisk beep beep beep. Star. Asterisk, star." The call was hung up. Bai Feng said in pain, "It's true. Why don't you believe me? I might have created an earth-shattering divine text that's not even inferior to Grandmaster's divine text." Grandmaster? The next moment, Bai Feng was stunned. Martial Uncle couldn't have passed that divine text to Su Yu, right? Bai Feng felt that he needed some peace and quiet. Was it his own divine text or Grandmaster's divine text? Did Martial Uncle pass that divine text to Su Yu? At this moment, his expression changed uncertainly, and he became completely serious. Gritting his teeth, Bai Feng dialed a number. A moment later, an unstable voice came from the other side. "Who is it?" "It's me, Uncle Master." N. Lu Wenyan's voice was unstable, and the signal was too bad. He asked suspiciously, "Why are you looking for me?" "Uncle Master, that Su Yu is here, that, the divine text that Grandmaster passed down." Scram! Lu Wenyan roared furiously, "You also have your eyes on my things? Is this something you can set your eyes on? You want your master to clean up the house? Bai, it's been so many years, and there are even Shanghai realm people eyeing me. You want to target me too? The last time you came, I felt that something was wrong with you. As expected, you're eyeing me. I'm telling you, in your dreams. Just you wait, you think I can't handle you? I heard that you sent your master away, so it was this idea. You're good, you're finished. From today onwards, Shanghai realm people will come to find trouble with you one by one, just you wait." Do. Bai Feng was stunned. "What? What's wrong with me? I'm just asking. Wasn't I just curious? Uncle Master, is he crazy? Is he trying to take care of me? What do you mean by the Shanghai realm will come looking for me one by one?" Bai Feng instantly felt a chill down his spine. Am I in trouble? He called again, but the phone was disconnected. F***CK. Bai Feng cursed, "What signal?" The signal was disconnected. What did I do? Wasn't I curious why Su Yu acted like that? Is there a need for Uncle Master to act like this? I didn't send my master away for this. Bai Feng was about to explode. It really wasn't. Uncle Master, please listen to my explanation. Oh. Bai Feng was a little mad. What happened today? Why did everyone misinterpret my meaning? Senior brother felt that he was borrowing money from him, and senior uncle felt that he was coveting his divine runes. I didn't think of anything. Downstairs. Hearing the faint roar coming from the second floor, Su Yu's chewing mouth stopped. He was a little worried as he muttered to himself, could it be that I've consumed too much willpower and blood essence, causing Bai Feng to be dissatisfied? He had entered 6 times yesterday. Did he consume too much energy and anger this person? Otherwise, why would he suddenly roar out of nowhere? Su Yu was a little worried. Would he chase him out? At this moment, Su Yu no longer thought about running away. Instead, he was thinking about how to stay. This was a treasure land, and he really couldn't bear to leave. Don't chase me out, worst comes to worst. I can enter a few times less every day. Su Yu was worried, always felt that he was a bit of the danger of being driven away. Chapter 275, Trash 1. After a long while, Bai Feng came down from upstairs. He regained his calm. It was as if he was not the one who was shouting. Glancing at Su Yu, Bai Feng said in a deep voice, cultivation matters are not to be taught to anyone except for teacher. Whether it's divine texts or cultivation techniques, unless you seek advice from someone, you don't need to report to anyone. Su Yu nodded. Bai Feng exhorted, because this is the Institute of Civilization, there are many things that a master of civilization knows. The slightest carelessness will result in a leak of secrets. If you are targeted by someone, you won't even know how you died. After saying that, Bai Feng glanced at him and quickly said, "Pack up and follow me." Su Yu didn't have anything to pack up. He picked up his yellow-grade saber and followed Bai Feng out of the institute. Outside, the weather was clear and bright. The weather today was very good. Bai Feng said as he walked, "Cultivate well these few days. If there's anything wrong with your sea of will, stop immediately." "Got it. Remember to tell me when you've reached a state of recuperation." "Okay." Su Yu did not say much. After walking for a while, he said in a low voice, "Teacher, then the advanced version of the Alart Art of War God." "Don't worry. If everything goes smoothly, we'll be able to get it this afternoon." As Bai Feng walked, he cursed in his heart. "I don't have it either. If we don't take down Hu Wensheng, how could that idiot Lu Hong pay the bill? After we take down Hu Wensheng, we'll have everything we want." He couldn't help but think of Su Yu again. This fellow was able to draw out the divine script very quickly, and his willpower was also improving very quickly. Now, it seemed like he was even able to open his mind very quickly. Previously, he had said that he would challenge the top 100 in a year's time. Let's wait and see. Su Yu followed Bai Feng all the way to the depths of the academy. Gradually, there were fewer people around. In the distance, individual villas appeared. Su Yu knew where this was. This was the residential area of the faculty. Actually, it was not far from the recuperation garden, but the recuperation garden was also very big. Behind the faculty residential area was the residential area of the students of the myriad races. "Are we going home?" Su Yu guessed in his heart. Bai Feng was going to bring him back to where he lived. Bai Feng did not say anything. He continued walking forward and waited until he passed the guard room. Bai Feng said indifferently, "In the academy, we have a few enemies. It's not a life and death struggle, but if we can make the other party unlucky, then let him be unlucky. Similarly, the other party is also doing the same to us. Generally speaking, it's a competition between people of the same realm. Whoever beats the other may be able to fight for more resources. Resources are limited, not infinite. Sometimes, I want a drop of demonic god blood, and he wants it too. Even if everyone has merit points and the merit points are of the same level, you may not be able to buy it. Let's see if you can compete with the other party." In our department, the outside world calls it the Multi-Divine Literature Fusion Department. There aren't many people, and it's almost dying out, but we're strong enough. The strong ones are themselves. You haven't reached the nurturing stage yet, so if I compete with you above the nurturing stage, I'll help you solve it. When you reach the nurturing stage, if people at the nurturing stage compete with you, I won't care about you." Bai Feng said, and then said, "That's your business. If I don't say it now, you'll find out in the future. As for me, I also have a few enemies in this academy." "Lu Hong." Su Yu said softly. Bai Feng said with a faint smile, "Lu Hong. Maybe. However, Lu Hong is ranked below me. Those who are weaker than me won't be my enemies. My opponent isn't him. Do you know Hu Wensheng?" "I've seen the introduction of the rankings." Su Yu nodded. "It's him. He's at the 9th level of the soaring heaven tier. He's the student of the deputy prefect. He was in the same batch as me in the past. He was ranked 2nd on the top 100 list. That year, Xia Yuan took the 1st place. I was ranked 4th and Wuxia was ranked 3rd. Bai Feng took a deep breath. I fought with him for many years for the chance to become an assistant teacher. I fought for the chance to cast my body with the blood of the gods and demons, for the chance to become an official, and for the chance to enter the mystic realm. I fought with him for many years. Originally, I was too lazy to continue fighting with him. To be honest, I didn't fancy him these years. That fellow was just a regular person and wasn't considered a monster. Su Yu was secretly speechless. What a big tone. He was only at the 7th level while he was at the 9th level. During the top 100 ranking, you were always 4th while he was always 2nd. How could you look down on him? Bai Feng seemed to know what he was thinking. He smiled faintly and said, "It's not first. There's actually no difference between 2nd and 4th. I don't care too much about this. If it's first, then it's still worth fighting for. I can't win against Xia Yuan. Actually, I'm too lazy to fight with them for anything. I'll just take a spot and give them everything they need. That's all that matters." Su Yu didn't know what he meant, so he couldn't reply. Bai Feng continued, "If I don't accept students this year, then I can't be bothered with him. At most, when the next opportunity comes, let's fight again." Su Yu couldn't help but say, "Teacher, what you mean is, didn't I take you in this year?" Bai Feng sighed and said, "After reaching the 7th level of the Soaring Heaven tier, I actually don't care about some of the things in the academy anymore. However, you can't. I have to fight for some things for you. Sai, I can only go for a gamble once. With 7 against 9, I can relieve some of the pressure on you. Even if I lose the battle, it will only be a disgrace and I'll be heavily injured. I'll have to recuperate for half a year." Su Yu was in a daze. What did he mean by that? Bai Feng said again, "Don't have a burden. Although I stood up for you, it doesn't matter. This is what a teacher should do." Su Yu really wanted to ask a few questions, but he did not know what to say. Why did he stand up for me? I'm very confused. I have no idea what you're talking about. Bai Feng sighed again. Within a year, if you can fly, then I won't have bled for nothing this time. Even if I get injured, it's worth it. Chapter 276, Trash 2. What the hell are you talking about? Su Yu was at a loss, and there was a hint of depression mixed within. It was as if I was dragging you down, but I didn't do anything. I came to the academy in a very low-key manner. Lu He came to find trouble with me, but I didn't say anything. Bai Feng ignored him and revealed a cold expression. His expression gradually turned serious. As he walked, an invisible aura emanated from him. Su Yu, this time, for your sake, teacher fought with Hu Wensheng. If you win, everything will be fine, but if you lose, it doesn't matter. Teacher overestimated himself, and it has nothing to do with you. Su Yu was going crazy. You said that, but you clearly had an expression that said that if you lost, it would have something to do with you. What did you mean by that? A year later, if you are unable to fly, it doesn't matter. Teacher will find a Shanghai realm expert to fight for a chance for you to fly. Can you not make it sound so sad? It feels like you're bragging. Su Yu really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He didn't quite understand what Bai Feng was trying to do. However, it felt like he wanted to give himself a little pressure, a little burden, and at the same time, make himself feel like he owed him a lot. However, he really didn't do anything. Bai Feng didn't care about him. I'll tell you, you just have to work hard. I've already said it so miserably. If you don't work hard, who will you let down? As for flying after a year, cough, cough, I'm just saying. I didn't ask you to fly. However, this kid's talent is very strong. It shouldn't be a problem for him to fight for the top 100 rankings for me after a year, right? Thinking about it, Bai Feng did not have the time to care about Su Yu. In the next moment, a villa appeared in front of him. Bai Feng's aura was high as he shouted, Hu Wensheng, your grandpa Bai is here. Get out. A thunderous shout echoed in the residential area. In the next moment, a figure appeared. In the small courtyard of the villa, a young man wearing a green robe walked out of the villa and looked at Bai Feng at the door. Frowning slightly, Hu Wenxing said coldly, "Bai Feng, do you want to die?" At the same time, figures flew over from all directions. They didn't get close, and the balconies of the surrounding villas became their ground. Why is Bai Feng looking for Hu Wenxing? He wants a one-on-one fight. The two of them have been fighting for many years, but Hu Wenxing has already reached the 9th level of the Sky Realm, and he is far behind Bai Feng. Bai Feng won't take the initiative to look for trouble, will he? The researchers began to discuss in low voices. It was not surprising. The two of them often fought with each other. However, it was also a little surprising. Since Bai Feng was stuck at the 6th level of the Sky Realm 2 years ago, he had not taken the initiative to look for trouble. Most of the time, he was on passive defense. Hu Wenxing could not be bothered with him and asked Lu Hong to step in. Lu Hong was the main force that was currently dealing with Bai Feng. Hu Wenxing was currently focused on Ling Yun. If Bai Feng did not look for him, he could not be bothered with Bai Feng either. What was going on today? In a villa next to Hu Wenxing, Wu Qi walked up to the balcony. Beside him, Lin Qing and Wu Lan followed him. Seeing the few people who were confronting each other not far away, Lin Qing asked in a low voice, "Teacher, why is assistant Bai looking for assistant Hu?" Wu Qi did not reply. Meanwhile, Wu Lan was staring at Su Yu, who was behind Bai Feng, gritting her teeth. This fellow really came. Further away, Lu Hong crossed his arms and looked over with a smile on his face. Behind him, Lu He said impatiently, "Brother, is Bai Feng courting death?" Lu Hong glanced at him and said indifferently, "Shut up. If he hears you, I'll break your legs. Don't blame me for not warning you." "Got it." Lu He exhaled and said with some dissatisfaction, "Is he here to cause trouble for Assistant Hu? Assistant Hu doesn't even bother with him. Bai Feng has overestimated himself too much. Even if he wants to find him, he should be looking for you." Lu Hong cursed in his heart. If he doesn't know how to speak, then shut up. What did he mean by Bai Feng overestimating him? He shouldn't be looking for Hu Wenxing, but for him to cause trouble. Didn't this mean that he was inferior to others? Was he inferior to Hu Wenxing? Why could he, Bai Feng, only look for him and not Hu Wenxing? He couldn't be bothered with this guy, but after thinking about it, he still said, "You better improve. Don't think that you're great just because you made it into the top 100. Be careful that you don't capsize in the gutter." Capsize? Lu He said hesitantly, "Brother, are you talking about Xie Chan or the other guys?" Lu Hong was too lazy to say anything else. "Just pay attention to yourself." His gaze turned to Su Yu, who was behind Bai Feng. Was this the student that Bai Feng had accepted this year? Su Yu was very talented. After observing him from afar, he did not have a sense of presence. Without the arrogance of those evildoers, without the flamboyance of those evildoers, he seemed inconspicuous beside Bai Feng. From all directions, more and more people gathered. In front of Hu Wenxing's villa, Bai Feng snorted coldly and said, "Hu Wenxing, if you have the ability, you can come and find trouble with me yourself. What is the meaning of getting your lackey, Lu Hong, to come looking down on your grandpa Bai? Competition is one thing, but you actually dared to let your dog bite my student." Bai Feng shouted angrily, unbridled. "Su Yu just entered the school this year and is not even a person with a good temperament. You actually dared to let that younger brother of Lu Hong suppress him. Do you really think I am a pushover?" Hu Wenxing frowned. He was completely unaware of this matter. However, there was nothing to refute. Their department had always been on bad terms with the other party. Suppressing them, wasn't that a normal operation? Did Lu He bully Bai Feng's student? He didn't ask about this either. The probability was probably true, but in reality, it didn't matter if it was true or not. When these people wanted to find fault, they would find fault even if they drank a glass of water. They would say that you poisoned the water. Chapter 277, All Trash Below Number 1. Hu Wenqing knew that there was no way to be kind to Bai Feng, who came looking for him with such a big show today. Without wasting any time, he said directly, Bai Feng, cut the unnecessary talk. Tell me directly, what do you want to do today? Okay. Bai Feng did not find any excuses and said directly, be more open. Your people bullied my people, so compensate them. Go to the arena, you win, and pretend that I never came. If I win, just compensate me with 1,000 drops of Qianjun essence blood from one of the top 100 races. Hu Wenqing frowned and looked at Su Yu. He said indifferently, are you here to fight for Qianjun body tempering essence blood for him? You don't need that much, 100 drops is enough. Who cares about me, whether I come or not? Hu Wenqing said coldly, Bai Feng, do you think I'm an idiot? If you lose, nothing will happen. If I lose, I will give you something. Have you woken up? Then what do you want? Nothing. Hu Wenqing said calmly. I won. Give me 100 drops of blood essence from the Heart Cultivation Pavilion. Bai Feng's expression changed. He said coldly, Hu Wenqing, you have a huge appetite. It's not that I have a huge appetite, it's that you came looking for me. Hu Wenqing said calmly. Bai Feng, I've been cultivating diligently for the past 2 years, waiting for Ling Yun's opportunity. I don't want to fight with you, and you're not my match either. The weak will have to pay the price for challenging the strong. Bai Feng laughed. I don't have 100 drops, but 1 drop. If you win, I'll give you 1 drop. If you have the ability, go and study it yourself. Really? Hu Wenqing's interest was piqued instantly. He actually didn't take Bai Feng, who was at the 7th level of the Soaring Heavens realm, seriously. Of course, it wasn't that he didn't take him seriously at all. Since this fellow dared to come, he was more or less certain of his chances. But a drop of blood essence containing an innate skill, he needed this item. Its value was simply too high. Alright, forget about the 1,000 drops of blood essence from the top 100 clans. I don't have that much. If I lose, how about 100 drops of Mountain Shattering Bull's blood essence at the 1,000 June realm? Mountain Shattering Bull? Bai Feng seemed to be a little dissatisfied. A clan ranked 99th among the top 100 clans, and you still have the cheek to bring it out. Hu Wenqing frowned. This is the best 1,000 June body forging blood essence. The Mountain Crushing Bull's body is strong, and the blood essence is the most suitable to strengthen the body. Don't push your luck. When Hu Wenqing said this, the expression of a young man in the villa behind him changed. He was Hu Wenqing's student. These 100 drops of Mountain Crushing Bull's blood essence were what Hu Wenqing had prepared for him to use for body forging. He was already at the 7th layer of the 1,000 June realm. Before the 9th layer of the 1,000 June realm, there was still hope for him to cast his body again. Even Hu Wenqing had spent a year to collect these 100 drops of Mountain Breaking Ox blood essence at the 1,000 June realm. Most of the time, these things could not be exchanged with money. The main reason was that there were too few of the top 100 races in the 1,000 June realm. Those who could appear in the heavenly battlefield were mostly in the air. A small portion of them were in the air. 100 drops of blood essence meant that one had to kill at least 10,000 cataclysmic mountain bulls. It was something that could only be encountered by luck. Strictly speaking, it was even rarer than the blood essence of a soaring realm expert. He was initially excited, waiting for his teacher to break through the bottleneck and help him rebuild his physical body. Who knew that Bai Feng would come knocking on his door? Soon, the young man heaved a sigh of relief. It was fine. His teacher was only at the 9th level while Bai Feng was only at the 7th level. There was no need to worry too much. Bai Feng seemed to be a little dissatisfied. After thinking for a moment, he said reluctantly, "All right, I'll let you off easy then. You bastard, you won't be able to bring out anything good." Hu Wensheng was as calm as water. He said calmly, "The strength of a civilized master is not based on words. Cut the crap. I just don't like you." Bai Feng acted arrogantly and sneered, "Don't act like I'm a saint. The opportunity one had to enter the secret realm was stolen by you. If not for that, you wouldn't have the chance to be so arrogant with me." Hu Wensheng did not defend himself. He just smiled and said, "It's up to you. You're stupid. How can you blame me for losing your chance? A few years ago, both of them were of the same level. One chance to enter the secret realm meant that he was at level 7 while Bai Feng was stuck at level 6. After that, he went straight to level 9. It was not until recently that Bai Feng managed to break through the barrier of level 7. The gap between them was usually widened at this moment. "That's true, then we'll have to rely on our own methods." Bai Feng chuckled. In the next moment, he rose into the air and shouted, "Come on up. We won't be going to the arena. Other colleagues, please guard the residence. We don't want to lose money if it's broken." "Ha ha ha, all right. Don't worry, we'll be watching." "Soon," someone responded. In the next moment, rays of golden light erupted, and one villa after another was guarded. Su Yu even saw Zhao Li. This old man was also watching happily. He stood on a villa not far away, looking as if he was watching a big show. As if sensing Su Yu's gaze, in the next moment, Zhao Li's golden longsword shot out, directly enveloping Su Yu. Su Yu did not have time to react. In the blink of an eye, he appeared beside Zhao Li. Zhao Li chuckled and said, "Let's watch the show. Let's watch Bai Feng and Hu Wenqing fight. The two of them haven't fought for a few years. Let's see if Bai Feng has anything good to show today. Otherwise, how would he dare to come and fight with Hu Wenqing?" Su Yu had a lot of questions, but now was not the time. He could only shut his mouth and silently look at the sky. On the other side, Hu Wenqing had already soared into the sky. In the sky, the two of them were confronting each other. Layers of golden light appeared around Hu Wenqing's body. Although he felt that Bai Feng was no match for him, the two of them had fought many times in the past. Although Bai Feng lost more than he won, each time he was extremely difficult to deal with. Now that there was a difference of 2 realms, it was not a major realm. Everyone was in the later stage of the soaring stage, so he did not dare to be careless. Chapter 278, Trash Below the First Rank. Golden Light Protection. In the next moment, a long sword appeared in his hand. As for Bai Feng, he still did not move. When he was ready, Bai Feng sneered and said, "A frog at the bottom of a well, a person who sees the sky from a well. Today, I'll let you all know that the more divine literature, the more you mediocre people cannot compare." As soon as these words were said, many people in the surroundings booed. Bai Feng was very arrogant. One had to know that there were only a few people in the extra divine literature department. "You, this fellow," had scolded the entire academy. "What are you booing for? You're a mediocre person to begin with. You can't allow others to speak the truth." In the next moment, he looked at Su Yu and shouted, "Disciple, teacher will teach you a lesson today. In the myriad of worlds in the heavens, geniuses will always be geniuses. Mediocre, even if you have the name of a genius, you're still a mediocre person. Come out." With a roar, more than 10 rays of golden light exploded from his body in the next moment. In the blink of an eye, the golden light gathered. "Trash, get lost." With a rumble, an earth-shattering sound was heard. Hu Wenqing also let out a low roar. His longsword exploded with a dazzling light. His aura was extremely shocking as he slashed out. In front of Bai Feng, the golden light was extremely powerful. With a rumble, it directly shattered the longsword. Shattered. Hu Wenqing charged out on his flying sword. At this moment, the long sword shattered and he instantly spat out a mouthful of blood essence. His face was deathly pale. Before he had the time to move, the golden light tore through the void and arrived. With a poochie sound, all of the golden light around Hu Wensheng's body was destroyed. In the blink of an eye, Hu Wensheng's entire body was covered in blood. With a bang, he directly smashed onto the ground. Silence. Deathly silence. In the air, Bai Feng's face was pale. He laughed coldly and left in an incomparably carefree manner. His voice rang out, "The world of geniuses is not a place that only mediocre people can participate in. Bring me the item later. If I want to kill you, it's just one move." Trash. Silence. Hu Wensheng, who had fallen to the ground, was pale-faced and covered in blood. He looked ahead in a daze and was speechless for a long time. There was a moment of dead silence in all directions. In the next moment, someone said in a low voice, "Divine Inscriptions Fusion." 18 Divine Inscriptions Fusion. He has outlined 18 divine inscriptions, and he has fused them all. Good heavens, this fellow has never reached the 7th level of the soaring heavens realm. I thought he didn't have a chance. No, he's fusing divine inscriptions. Terrifying. Hu Wensheng isn't his match, and Wu Qi can't defeat him either. Only Xia Yuan has a chance to fight him. This fellow is really patient. It's not that he's patient. He looks down on Hu Wensheng, and his only opponent is Xia Yuan. He feels that he can't defeat Xia Yuan, so he's been too lazy to fight them. Now, he's confident. There's a good show to watch. There is indeed a good show to watch. Xia Yuan went to the heavenly battlefield to look for a chance to break through to Ling Yun. If he doesn't break through, he'll have to fight Bai Feng once. The discussions continued. At this moment, Bai Feng's skills shocked everyone. He instantly killed Hu Wensheng, who was at the 9th level of the soaring heavens realm. Hu Wensheng, who was at the 9th level of the soaring heavens realm, didn't even have a chance to resist. Mediocre, genius? Was Hu Wensheng a mediocre genius? Absolutely not. This could only mean that Bai Feng was a monster, a true monster. In the villa where Lu Hong was located, Lu He was stunned. His mouth was wide open, and his face was filled with shock. Lu Hong's face was also solemn. What a good Bai Feng. F***ck, he's been teasing me these past few years. Lu Hong cursed in his heart. Then, he couldn't help but frown. So strong, how can I fight? I haven't reached the 9th level of the soaring heavens realm, but in the eyes of everyone, I clearly don't have the qualifications to fight with you. Brother, how can he be so strong? Lu He still found it hard to believe. Killing Hu Wensheng in one move, how could it be possible? Lu Hong's expression was solemn, and he quickly said, "It's fine, it's just a surprise attack." Hu Wensheng wasn't prepared, so he was a bit careless. After Bai Feng's one move, he was also like an arrow at the end of its flight. Don't think that he's fast, if he doesn't leave now, he'll lose face. As he spoke, he took a deep breath and said, "When experts fight, don't look at how many moves they have. A loss is a loss, and a win is a win. If Bai Feng doesn't succeed in one move, he'll lose. If Hu Wensheng knows that he can fuse with 18 divine inscriptions and is prepared, he'll lose to Bai Feng. So don't think that Bai Feng is really strong." Wu family's villa. Wu Qi's expression was still calm, but Wu Lan and Lin Qing couldn't. Lin Qing said in a daze, "Master, isn't he only at the 7th level of the soaring heaven stage?" Wu Qi said calmly, "The 7th level of the soaring heaven stage is also at the later stage of the soaring heaven stage. The gap between him and the 9th level is not that big. Hu Wensheng is just a mediocre talent. He has really underestimated Bai Feng at the 7th level of Bai Feng." What a joke. Wu Lan did not have so much scruples and said directly, "Sister, can you beat him?" Wu Qi glanced at her, and a faint smile appeared on her face. Bai Feng. Dare to look for me? Wu Lan blinked. What did she mean? He only bullies Hu Wensheng, but he dares to look for me, go back today and lie down for half a year. Although Wu Qi's words were calm, they were frighteningly arrogant. Hu Wensheng, Wu Qi showed a faint disdain and turned around to leave. His voice sounded, second place in the top 100. It's just a joke. Xia Yuan took first place, and Bai Feng and I don't want to compete for this so-called second place. We wish we couldn't even enter the top 100. After first place, they were all trash. Since they couldn't compete with Xia Yuan, what else was there to compete for? Su Yu didn't care about the voices from all directions. At this moment, he was shocked, dazed, and in disbelief. Too many emotions filled his mind. Bai Feng, a genius? No, he was a monster. Fighting above his level, killing him in one strike. 7th level versus 9th level, no more than 3 seconds. Divine runes fused, 18 divine runes fused into one. The explosive power was terrifying, and one strike broke through all of Hu Wensheng's defenses and attacks. Was this the fusion of multiple divine runes? It was really very strong. At this moment, Su Yu suddenly understood what Bai Feng was saying. A genius was nothing. Hu Wensheng was hailed as the Academy's genius teaching assistant and ranked second. But in the end, no wonder Bai Feng kept saying that a genius was nothing. He didn't care at all. Today, Su Yu understood. Su Yu took a deep breath and felt a little excited. Previously, he had thought that Bai Feng was neglecting him, but now, Su Yu only had one thought. Bai Feng had the right to be arrogant. Even if he had talent, his strength was too weak. What right did he have to be taken seriously by Bai Feng? I want to become stronger. Su Yu took another deep breath and clenched his fists. I want to become stronger. Just like Bai Feng today, destroying a genius with one strike. In such a huge academy, including those mountains and seas of Lingyun, who dared to say that Bai Feng was not good enough? Too unrestrained. It was too tempting. However, since you are so strong, what did you mean when you said that you were weak? Su Yu did not know whether to laugh or cry. P.S. Push a book, my farm is too popular. Big Boss's new book. Guess which big boss it is. In addition, it will be on the shelves at noon the day after tomorrow. Everyone, keep your monthly tickets. Let's talk about the new book list. In addition, I have updated quite a lot. It is almost 500,000 words, and it has only been 42 days since the book was released. Eagle is the best. Those who agree, please vote. Those who disagree, there should be no disagreement. Chapter 279, Enmity 1. Bai Feng's strength was out of everyone's expectations. The news of him defeating the genius assistant teacher, Hu Wensheng, in one move quickly spread throughout the upper echelons of the academy. Not long after Bai Feng left. Heart Cultivation Pavilion Area. In a small courtyard with a beautiful environment, Vice Principal Zhou Mingren suddenly sighed. His eyes revealed a look of reminiscence as he said softly, Wensheng is still not as good as him, as expected. In the small courtyard, besides Zhou Mingren, there was also an old man. He was Zhou Mingren's student, a student from many years ago. Now, he had also entered the Heart Cultivation Pavilion and had just entered the Mountain Sea realm. Teacher, junior brother Wensheng sighed. Let him pass this test on his own. Zhou Mingren said softly, heart cultivation. If he can't even pass this test, how can he cultivate his heart? The school of multiple divine languages had always suppressed us in the past. Although there weren't many elites, as long as one person came out, they would be considered strong. This was also normal. After saying that, Zhou Mingren's gaze became much more resolute. I know that their school produces elites. But elites are elites, it doesn't mean that they can be popularized. If not for this, the school of multiple divine languages wouldn't have declined. He turned his head to look at his own student, with a resolute expression. He said, "What can be popularized is the most suitable. Not everyone is Hong Tan, and everyone is Bai Feng. It's fine to nurture geniuses, but wanting to turn the academy into the backyard of the multi-divine literature department is a mistake." Zhou Mingren exhaled lightly. He said in a deep voice, "Yuming, you've followed me for so many years, you should know why teacher wants to compete with them. I don't wish for the tragedy from 50 years ago to happen again. The multi-divine literature department can exist, but it definitely cannot be strengthened. 50 years ago, how many geniuses and evildoers of that generation were all wasted." Zhou Mingren seemed to be a little regretful. He said angrily, "Lu Wenyan, Zhao Mingyue, Xia Yinqi, Hu Ping, that generation, the golden generation. The elites gathered together, and the geniuses gathered together. In the cultivation stage, they nurtured a large pile of 7 or 8 divine runes. Lu Wenyan even nurtured 20 divine runes, and the cultivation battle soared into the sky. In the end, they were all destroyed." Zhou Mingren's anger was even more obvious. At that time, how many evildoers and geniuses were harmed? Otherwise, 50 years later, how many mountains and seas would have appeared among them, and even above them? After saying that, Zhou Mingren's expression returned to normal, and he took a light breath. "Therefore, I have no objections to their existence. However, we must not give them another chance to grow stronger. Otherwise, the hearts of the people will change, and the tragedy that happened 50 years ago will reappear. The situation that the Great Xia Civilization Academy managed to turn around with great difficulty will soon be in turmoil again." Yuming, who was beside him, nodded slightly and said softly, "Teacher, I understand. We will not give them the chance to grow stronger." As he said that, he said in a low voice, "Teacher is still not cold-hearted enough. Otherwise, we should not have allowed Hong Tan to continue staying in the academy back then." Zhou Mingren raised his hand and waved it slightly. He said softly, "There is still a need to have more divine literature. However, it should be limited. We should take in 1 or 2 students in a batch and develop in a low-key manner. We should not make a big fuss about opening up a faction again and dominate the entire academy." As he said that, Zhou Mingren asked, "I heard that Bai Feng took in a student?" "Yes, Su Yu, from the Southern Yuan dynasty. He's a top-tier student, a student that Lu Wenyan brought out. Lu Wenyan still doesn't want to give up." Zhou Mingren sighed. "He's holed up in the Southern Yuan dynasty. Does he really think that someone can once again carry the cauldron of more divine literature? Even he himself is completely crippled. He just rose into the air not too long ago and hasn't made a move in all these years. Even if he has fused divine literature, even if he has fused 20 divine literature into one, even if he's still as talented as before and can defeat the 9th level of the Soaring Heavens faction, or even cross ranks to fight against Lingyun. So what?" Zhou Mingren sighed. If he had chosen to walk the path of divine runes alone, he would have long since reached the peak of the mountain and sea realm. If he was lucky, he might even have reached the peak of the mountain and sea realm. "Do you think it's worth it?" Yuming also felt a little regretful and said softly, "It's not worth it. In the past, he was the proud son of heaven, and I was just an ordinary student. I was nothing at all. In that year, they shone with boundless glory, and I was like dust. 50 years later, when I entered the mountains and seas, they grew old, died, and soared into the sky. It was difficult." As Yuming said this, he felt a myriad of emotions. There were too many genius students in that year. Just like Bai Feng's year, no, it was even more exciting than Bai Feng's year. Perhaps, it was similar to this year's year. Lu Wenyan, Wu Yuehua, Zhao Mingyue, Xia Yinqi. Many people's names were spreading in the great Xia mansion and even in the human realm. Evildoers ran amok. Nature-nurturing battle soared into the sky, nature-nurturing killing soared into the sky. 3 days to outline the divine text, 10 days to strengthen the divine text. To him, the geniuses of that era were too dazzling. And he, Xing Yiming, was really too ordinary, too ordinary. In the end, 50 years later, everything had changed. Those evildoers of the past were all crippled, and he had stepped into the mountain and sea realm. Zhou Mingren also had some recollections. Very quickly, he said, "These things are all in the past. The scene from 50 years ago cannot be repeated. I know what the 10,000 heavenly saints is thinking, but he still hasn't given up. He wants to rekindle the faction of the multiple divine texts, to see if he can try again and see if he has a chance to enter the mountains and seas. But doesn't he think that the era of evildoers of the past has already been crippled? Can he do it now? Isn't he afraid that the next few batches of students will be crippled by him again?" Zhou Mingren snorted coldly, somewhat displeased. Xing Yiming said in a low voice, "Teacher, does the principal really want to strengthen the divine literature department? But back then, he was the one who expelled those people. Now, if..." Chapter 280, Enmity 2. You don't understand. Zhou Mingren waved his hand. What myriad heaven saint cares about is not who will lead the academy or which faction will grow stronger. He has ambition. What he wants is to be above the mountains and seas. What he wants is to explore a stable path that can lead to the mountains and seas, but what he can't even do in the exploration realm or the war god hall, can he do it? How can he do it? Zhou Mingren didn't believe that Wan Tianxing could do it at all. He said coldly, "Don't worry about him. Wan Tianxing advocates the survival of the fittest and the rise of the fittest in adversity. In fact, he walks the elite policy, so he won't interfere with our competition." Then, Zhou Mingren said, "When Sheng has lost. Let's see when he can get out of his own hurdle. Increase the training of Lu Hong. Let him quickly enter the 9th level of the Sky Rise realm and continue to suppress Bai Feng. Can Lu Hong do it?" Xing Yiming said uncertainly, "He's not even as good as Wen Sheng. How can he fight with Bai Feng?" "Lu Hong," Zhou Mingren smiled, "don't underestimate him. Although his strength is not as good as Wen Sheng, his brain is better than Wen Sheng's. In the soaring heaven realm, only Xia Yuan and Wuxia can suppress Bai Feng. It's hard to say whether Wuxia can suppress Bai Feng or not. So, we're not looking for someone who can suppress Bai Feng in terms of martial strength, but someone above the brain." "Understood. Tell Lu Hong not to let the multi-god literature department get any more attention." "Oh right, that student Bai Feng, suppress him." Zhou Mingren took a deep breath. The multi-god literature department has reignited. Once they make a big splash again, the students of the academy will definitely be tempted. When that time comes, the tragedy will repeat itself, and the great Xia Manor will be thrown into chaos again. Xing Yiming nodded and was about to leave. He thought for a moment and turned around. "Teacher, what about Lu Wenyan?" "Lu Wenyan?" Zhou Mingren fell into deep thought. After a moment, he said, "Don't worry about him. If he has the ability and can rise again, that would be a good thing. However, if he only has the strength to soar into the sky, it won't change anything. If the branch of the multi-god literature can really walk out of the mountains and seas, that would be the good fortune of the human race and the great Xia." Zhou Mingren said calmly, "Unfortunately, I don't think I will be able to see this day." "I understand." Xing Yiming did not ask any more questions and turned around to leave. Hu Wenqing's defeat was indeed out of their expectations. However, at this moment, they could not change anything. The Divine Literature Department alone had dominated the academy for 50 years. Just the Shanghai realm alone had many people. Hong Tan alone could barely handle this mess. Research Center. Su Yu quickly rushed back. Bai Feng was indeed here. At this moment, Bai Feng was leaning on the sofa watching TV. When he saw Su Yu return, he said calmly, "Didn't you walk around outside?" "Teacher, you're really strong." Su Yu sucked up to him from the bottom of his heart. He was too strong. Bai Feng smiled indifferently, but he was proud in his heart. Brat, weren't you very arrogant with me? Not arrogant now. Now you know what a genius is, right? Just as he was thinking, Su Yu said with a serious expression, I've offended you previously, I hope teacher won't mind. As he said that, he said, Teacher, have you changed your clothes? I'll help you wash the clothes that you've changed out of. Bai Feng's expression changed slightly. In the next moment, he said indifferently, there's no need. You don't have to wear your clothes a second time. It's a crime for us to waste our time on washing clothes. Su Yu was slightly startled. Wasting time. Wasting time, and you still want me to clean up every day. Isn't this a waste of time? With a trace of doubt in his mind, Su Yu glanced at Bai Feng from the corner of his eye. He saw that his face was slightly pale. Could it be that his clothes have been lost and he's ashamed of himself? He changed his clothes right after returning. Could it be that he vomited blood? Su Yu was at a loss whether to laugh or cry. He had discovered a small flaw in Bai Feng. He liked to put on an act. In truth, even if Bai Feng vomited blood, it didn't stop him from admiring him. To be able to kill a cultivator of the 7th level of the soaring heavens realm in an instant, how could he not think that Bai Feng was formidable just because the other party vomited blood? Of course, no one was perfect. Bai Feng had some small flaws, but it was more acceptable. He was a human, not a god. Su Yu did not dwell on this matter anymore. He wanted to say something, but he hesitated. Bai Feng seemed to know what he wanted to ask. He smiled and said, I want to ask, what was the move that instantly killed Hu Wensheng? Yes. Su Yu nodded. He was indeed curious. Multiple divine runes fusion. Bai Feng smiled and said, this is the origin of the name of our school. Of course, it's useless to tell you now. You haven't even cultivated your character yet. What's the use of me telling you all this? When you've cultivated your character, I will slowly teach you. Don't worry. Since you've entered my school, then I won't keep it to myself. Bai Feng smiled and said, I'm not afraid that my disciple will learn much, nor am I afraid that he will surpass me. It would be good if he can really surpass me. That means that I haven't reached my limit and haven't discovered more of the cultivation secrets. Su Yu did not ask any more questions. It was very necessary to cultivate step by step. To aim too high was indeed not suitable for him. Bai Feng did not say anything more about this. He changed the topic and said, it's best to set a small goal for your cultivation. You've just entered the academy. I don't have high expectations for you in your first month. For your first monthly exam, you just need to get into the top 10 of the intermediate class. This month, you'll master the basics and familiarize yourself with the academy. The tasks after that will be more and more difficult. Top 10 of the intermediate class. Su Yu knew about the school's class distribution. The class below 20%, the beginner class. The class before 20%, the intermediate class. After that, it would be the advanced class where the nature conservation was located. Chapter 281, Enmity 3. He was now considered an intermediate class student. This year, there were close to 2,000 new students, and the majority of the intermediate class students were probably more than 1,000. Also, Bai Feng continued, today, I defeated Hu Wensheng, so it's up to you to decide. Many people don't like the emergence of the multi-god literature department, so they can't do anything to me. Don't tell me they can't do anything to you. Teacher. Su Yu couldn't help but say, there are only a few people in our department. Even if we fight for resources, there aren't many people. Why do those people have to go against us? Bai Feng smiled faintly and said, it's not that they have to go against us. You're wrong. It's us, who have to go against them. Su Yu was stunned. Bai Feng said indifferently, the path they took is wrong. They're trash, a path that will delay the future of geniuses. We don't agree, so of course we have to go against them. Of course we have to prove that we're right. Why don't we go against them? What is seeking? The road ahead was long and arduous. It was hard to say which path was right or wrong since they had not reached the end. However, the so-called geniuses that they had nurtured all these years were inferior to others in the same realm. Even Zhou Mingren was not a match for your grand teacher, my teacher. Since that's the case, why waste a large amount of resources on those mediocre geniuses and let them take the wrong path? Bai Feng said with a sneer, teacher once gave an opinion. Middle and lower level students walk the ordinary path of divine literature, upper level students, and monsters all walk the path of multi-divine literature. Teaching according to one's aptitude. We can't completely deny us just because there was a problem with the path of multi-divine literature. Bai Feng said, he said with some dissatisfaction, if geniuses also walk the ordinary path, then do we still need geniuses? Isn't that talent a waste? Everyone advances together. This is also something that teacher has mentioned several times before, but it has been denied time and time again. Actually, he did not deny Zhou Mingren and the others' faction. He felt that it was better for ordinary students to walk this path, but why would a genius walk this path? Even if it was easy to raise and cripple a genius with the addition of the divine literature faction, it would still be enough for 1 out of 10 people to become a genius. They were both at the 7th level of the Soaring Heavens faction, and the resources Bai Feng used were definitely not as much as 10 7th level of the Soaring Heavens faction. However, speaking of importance, Bai Feng was not boasting. If he really entered the heavenly battlefield, 10 7th level of the Soaring Heavens faction, unless they surrounded and killed him. Otherwise, the 10 who would die would definitely be the ones who died. At this moment, Suyu was somewhat speechless. So, it was not others who were going against us, but us who had to go against others? Why did it feel like a villain? Seeing this, Bai Feng smiled and said, of course, actually, it's not that we have to go against them. It's just that we don't like each other. Don't worry about these things. It's just a normal competition. There's no need to take it too seriously. Within the rules, do as you please. If you exceed the rules, then you are a member of the Myriad Clan cult. Bai Feng said casually, regardless of whether it's true or not, as long as you exceed the rules, you will be a member of the Myriad Clan cult. If you have evidence, just kill him. The academy will reward you. Don't worry. The rules that teacher said. Bai Feng smiled and said, if I don't want your life, if I don't cripple your cultivation path, then I won't exceed the rules. If I want your life, then I'll cripple your cultivation path. For example, if I crush your sea of consciousness, then even if I exceed the rules, I'll treat you as a member of the Myriad Clan sect. The academy will support you, so what's there to be afraid of? Suyu was speechless once again. The rules were really brutal. However, it could be seen that the academy still hoped to control the competition within a certain range. As long as it didn't cut off the path ahead, that would be fine. As for being unable to compete with others, that would be your problem. Alright, that's all for now. I still have to go to the main experimental area later to take a look at the situation. After saying that, Bai Feng stood up. The advanced version of the Alart Art of War God will arrive in the afternoon. You can look at your own cultivati when you reach the state of recuperation or when you're about to enter the state Qianjunjun, just give me a reminder. Got it. Bai Feng quickly went to the 3rd underground floor. Suyu was free. He simply tidied up the living area and did not delay any further. He went to the 2nd floor again. In the fragment room, Suyu once again activated his self-torture mode. Having witnessed Bai Feng's strength, it made him yearn for strength even more. He did not even have the temperament yet. In the eyes of Bai Feng and company, he did not even have the desire to teach. That was because there was no need. There were many things that one could not understand even after saying so much. Not only that, after coming out of the fragment room this time, Suyu hesitated for a moment. He still used the 10,000 stone blood essence. He wanted to use the 10,000 stone blood essence to aid his cultivation. With the help of the 10,000 stone blood essence and the rich yuan qi energy in the filtration chamber, the speed at which he opened his acupoints would definitely be even faster. It was astonishingly fast. Now, he, who was about to open the 7th acupoint of the God of War technique, was not far from Qianjun. On this day, Suyu cultivated crazily. He was torturing himself. He did not even know how many tears he had shed. After using the second drop of 10,000 stone blood essence, Suyu got his wish and opened the 7th aperture. At this moment, there was only one aperture left in the normal version of the Art of War God, that hadn't been opened yet. It wasn't until the end of his cultivation that Suyu returned to the living area, exhausted, and saw a book on the table. The advanced version of the Art of War God. He didn't know when Bai Feng had come out from the 3rd underground level, but he placed the thing here. Suyu picked up the advanced version of the Art of War God, and took a lohe. He let out a light braid. It was a top-tier earth-tier cultivation technique. 108 openings. The first level required him to open 12 openings, and if he wanted to enter Qianjun, he still needed to open 5 more openings. Without the text of will, I don't feel that the impact is too great. Suyu muttered. He did not have the help of the text of will in this aspect, but he felt that his cultivation speed was quite fast. Chapter 282, Enmity 4. He did not know whether it was because the early stages were not important or because his talent was extraordinary, but even without the article of will, his cultivation speed did not slow down. Forget it, I'll open the remaining 5 apertures as soon as possible and enter Qianjun first. This was the month. Suyu had made a decision. Within this month, he would advance to Qianjun. As for willpower, he hoped to enter recuperation, but it did not seem like there was much hope. Tomorrow, the academy would officially start classes. Suyu did not stay overnight in the laboratory. He had to go back and change his clothes. In addition, he had his textbooks and the like at the dormitory. Perhaps I can move to the laboratory. Suyu had some small ideas. No one would care if he cultivated here. Moreover, it felt like a single-family villa. Anyway, even if Bai Feng was here, he would usually be on the 3rd underground floor. I can still save 10 merit points a year. I have to save up on merit points. Suyu calculated in his heart. He was somewhat looking forward to it. Why not, move here? Under the night sky, the academy was still brightly lit. Suyu walked on the road. At this moment, he had some rare free time. He quietly enjoyed the scenery of the academy. His exhausted body and mind were somewhat relaxed. 2 consecutive days of continuous high-load cultivation made Suyu feel a little tired. When he thought of those experts who had been in seclusion for a few years or even decades, Suyu could only admire them at this moment. How did these people do it? Also, did the experts need to excrete? This was also a problem. Suyu fell into deep thought. If it was necessary, could the experts still stay in the place where they were in seclusion? Would he faint from the stench after entering? As his thoughts ran wild, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Suyu was just about to make way. He had just entered the academy and was only a freshman. It was better for him to keep a low profile. Unexpectedly, the person opposite him once again stopped him. Suyu raised his head and looked over. His expression changed slightly as some thoughts appeared in his heart. The person blocking in front of him was a young man. He had seen him before. He had seen him earlier in the day, even though the other party might not have paid him any attention. The young man opposite him let out a light sigh. He had finally waited for Suyu. Seeing Suyu stop in his tracks, the young man said, let me introduce myself. My name is Qin Qi. I was a student of the previous batch of students. I'm Hu Wenxing's assistant teacher's student. Nice to meet you, Su Yu. Qin Qi nodded and said, today, assistant teacher by phone defeated my teacher and also won the mountain-breaking ox blood essence that teacher prepared for me to build my foundation. Qin Qi said in a low voice, since last year, I've been waiting for the chance to build my foundation. Before soaring into the sky, Qianjun is my only chance to build my physical body. Until the 9th layer of Qianjun, I will have the chance to build my foundation. I want to enter the top 100, so this year, I will try to enter the Wuxia realm. But if my physical body is not strong, I won't be able to compete with those students on the top 100. Su Yu, you have just entered the academy, so you still have many opportunities. Even if you reach the 1000 June 9th layer, you will still have the opportunity to cast your body. As for me, I won't have the chance. Qin Qi said sincerely, your teacher has won the mountain-shattering bull essence blood, so I have no way to build my foundation now. Su Yu, this essence blood must be prepared for you. I hope that you can sell it to me. I know. Your family background is average and you lack merit points. I will use merit points to buy it. The mountain ox blood essence was considered the best among the 1000 June blood essence. It was even comparable to the 1000 stone blood essence. I am willing to buy this mountain ox blood essence at the price of 5 merit points per drop. 500 merit points. Qin Qi said again, at this stage, you need a large number of merit points to build your foundation. When you reach the 1000 June, you will need at least a year to reach the 1000 June 9 weight. During this time, I will think of ways to help you buy some of the blood essence of the top 100 races. This way, it will not delay my foundation building and will not delay you. This is a win-win situation. He spoke very sincerely and was willing to spend a large number of merit points to buy it. When Su Yu heard 500 merit points, he was a little shocked. However, he quickly said bitterly, senior brother, you must be joking. This blood essence was won by teacher. I didn't even see how to trade it with senior brother. That won't happen. Assistant teacher by phone will give it to you very soon. Qin Qi hurriedly said, you're already at the 9th level of the origin opening realm. He's definitely preparing it for your Qianjun Foundation establishment. Su Yu frowned slightly and forced a smile. Senior brother, I don't see it now. It's alright. When you get it, you can sell it to me. Qin Qi was a little anxious. We can sign a contract. I'll use 500 merit points to buy it. As long as you get it, sell it to me. 500 merit points is really not a small amount. Su Yu forced a smile. What a joke. Even if he did get it, he couldn't sell it. It didn't matter if he needed it or not. It wasn't something that belonged to him. If Bai Feng had given it to him, he would have hoped that he would grow stronger. But in the end, he had sold it to him. What would Bai Feng think? If that was the case, he would completely detest Bai Feng. For the sake of a few hundred merit points, he had made Bai Feng loathe him, he had even chased him away and prevented him from entering the laboratory. That would be a huge loss. Moreover, his reputation wasn't good either. The blood essence that teacher gave you was for you to use in your foundation establishment. If you sold it and it was spread out, how would Su Yu fare? If Bai Feng chased him away, perhaps no one in the academy would be willing to accept him anymore. This was equivalent to using 500 merit points to buy Su Yu's future. Su Yu's future was worth 500 merit points. Senior brother Chen, I'm really sorry. Su Yu rejected. Qin Qi's expression changed for a moment, he said in a low voice, Su Yu, if you reject, it means that you're cutting off my future. I originally had hopes of making it into the top 100 this year or next year. If I can't obtain the blood essence, then I have no hope of making it into the top 100. Do you know what it means to cut off someone's future? Suyu frowned and no longer gave a perfunctory smile. He said with some dissatisfaction, "Senior brother Chen, you're being too serious. Your teacher lost his blood essence. That means he's willing to accept his loss. What does that have to do with me? If you really want to buy it, then go find teacher Bai instead of me. You're just bullying the weak and fearing the strong. You felt that you couldn't buy it from teacher Bai, so you came to me. You're bullying me because I don't understand these things. Little did you know that if you successfully buy it, you're cutting off my future. You destroyed my future, and you still want me to agree to it. Otherwise, you can treat me as your enemy. If that's the case, I will make you my enemy." Suyu's face turned cold. "Ridiculous. I destroyed your future. You are clearly the one who destroyed my future. Do you really think that I, Suyu, am an idiot? 500 merit points is indeed a lot. If ordinary students heard it, they might really agree to it. However, he was Suyu, and he had great ambitions. How could he be willing to fall for 500 merit points?" Suyu took a detour. Behind him, Chen Qi's voice was low. "What you said may be true, but I said that you still have a chance. As for me, after this stage, there is no chance. Suyu, are you really not willing to help me? I am willing to add another 500 merit points. Senior brother can think of a way to buy other blood essence. 1,000 merit points should be able to buy. That will take time." Chen Qi was a little angry. "Usually, I can only collect a few drops or 100 drops. It will take at least half a year or even a year to collect them. So if you have time to collect them, you can use merit points to collect them. It won't delay you. As for me, I don't have time. Senior brother, let's ask the black market." Suyu ignored him. "You don't have time, but I do. I still want to enter the top 100 within a year." Ignoring Chen Qi, Suyu left. Behind him, Chen Qi clenched his fists, his eyes filled with anger. "I bought it sincerely, and I'm even willing to spend 1,000 merit points. This price has already exceeded the value of my blood essence. Do you want to ruin my future?"